The orange-red sunset streamed through the window grills like molten iron, bathing Class 6, Grade 9, in a warm, amber glow. It was the last period on Friday afternoon, a time when teenagers usually grew restless and distracted. Yet the classroom was unnervingly quiet. Head teacher Li Yao stood behind the podium, her fingertips tapping lightly on a well-worn copy of A Brief History of Blue Star's Modern Era. Behind her, a holographic projection screen slowly rotated. The cerulean planet was crisscrossed by jagged fissures. On this very day 10,000 years ago, Blue Star entered the cataclysm epoch without warning. Volcanoes erupted worldwide, tectonic plates split apart, and thousand-foot tidal waves swallowed coastal metropolises. Human civilization teetered on the brink of extinction. She swept a hand through the empty air, and the projection shifted violently. Towering tsunamis toppled steel cities like toy blocks, while blinding pillars of light burst from the cracked earth. Yet just as humanity believed the end had come, natural spiritual power surged back in massive waves. Natural disasters abated at an inconceivable pace, but Blue Star itself expanded, fractured and swelled under the collision of spiritual energy. It grew more than 50 times its original volume. The spatial gaps between celestial bodies stretched to astronomical lengths, and to this day, the full boundaries forged by that upheaval remain uncharted. She scanned the classroom. More crucially, spiritual power awakened slumbering species. Dragons, phoenixes, Qilin, the spirit beasts of ancient myth descended one after another. Mankind, however, gained no boons from that initial cataclysm. The projection cut to new footage. Mountain-scaled behemoths crushed tank formations. Human armies retreated step by step, and city after city fell. Powerful spirit beasts launched an all-out assault on humanity. Just as mankind prepared to retreat into underground cities, extraplanar spirit beasts arrived. Countless streaks of light plummeted from the pitch-black starry sky, each beam carrying a ferocious giant beast that attacked all native life on Blue Star without discrimination. Caught between two foes, the first batch of innate awakeners emerged. The projection froze on a golden ring-shaped mark. The first beast tamers were born. They could forge soul contracts with elementally compatible spirit beasts via beast tamer rings, gaining multiplied growth speeds and combat power. United by the first beast tamers and native spirit beasts, the alliance of extraplanar spirit beasts was driven back. Li Yao closed the book. The three factions finally signed the Blue Star Pact, agreeing to coexist harmoniously without hierarchy. 10,000 years have passed since then. The bloodlines of all three races have intermingled, their civilizations intertwined, and together they have colonized countless habitable planets deep within the Star Sea. Teacher, sports monitor Zhang Fan raised his hand. If we won the war, why didn't we wipe out all the extraplanar spirit beasts entirely? Hey Zhang Fan, is your brain nothing but muscle? Arts monitor Zhao Jingyi spun around instantly. Wouldn't peaceful coexistence be better? Soft-hearted weakness. Enough. Class monitor Su Yongkong pushed up his glasses. The remnants of the extraplanar spirit beasts still held formidable strength back then. Forcing their annihilation or enslavement would only plant seeds of rebellion. Equal tripartite co-ruling was the only optimal solution at the time. Li Yao nodded approvingly. Su Yongkong is quite correct. As the old saying goes, never exhaust every ounce of your advantage. The ruling council of that era chose the path most beneficial for humanity's long-term development. She paused. 10,000 years later, humanity's research into beast tamer rings has grown increasingly advanced. We now know the optimal awakening window falls between the ages of 15 and 16, and we have developed awakening stones to assist the process. Yet only 10% of all participants manage to awaken successfully each year. And of that 10%, a mere 1% possess innate beast taming talent. A heavy silence settled over the classroom. Li Yao tapped the podium twice gently. But I still hope every single one of you can become part of that 10%, or even that 1%. Gather on the school playground at 9 o'clock Monday morning for unified spiritual power testing and the Beast Tamer awakening ritual. Her gaze drifted past the rows of desks. She looked to the window seat in the second-to-last row. Mu Ningyi, every pair of eyes in the room swiveled toward him at once. The sunset gilded the side of his face. The youth was tall and straight-shouldered, with sharp, handsome features and a cold, aloof bearing, like an unsheathed frost-forged blade. You have already undergone innate awakening, but the spiritual power test is mandatory procedure. You cannot skip it. Be there promptly at 9 on Monday morning. Understood, Teacher Li. Mu Ningyi gave a slight nod. Ring, ring, ring. The school bell rang. The classroom erupted in an instant. Mu Ningyi had barely stuffed his textbooks into his bag when a heavy clap landed on his shoulder. Ai, listen to this, just listen. His desk mate and best friend, Huang Long, slung his backpack over one shoulder. He leaned in with a bright, round face and sparkling eyes. 10%. And here you are, already innately awakened with an Ice Affinity Beast Tamer ring. You skipped the hellish gotcha draw entirely. Mu Ningyi zipped his bag shut. It was just good luck. Luck? You call this luck? Huang Long lowered his voice. You're from the Mu clan, one of the 4 great families of Magic City. Your clan's ancestors were among the very first beast tamers. Experts all say bloodlines like yours awaken far more easily than ordinary humans. You actually believe those experts? Mu Ningyi cut him off. Our clan's ratio of beast tamers isn't all that high. My eldest brother, second brother, and I awakened this generation, but father and aunt are ordinary humans. Not to mention all the collateral branch members with no talent at all. I'd still kill for that luck. Huang Long grumbled. You've got ancestral inheritances, secret realms, and pre-compatible contracted spirit beasts. Us common folks have nothing but blind luck to rely on. The inheritances do help, Mu Ningyi said without slowing his pace. The Mu bloodline bears the fixed talent Lord of Flame, so the first beast tamer ring almost always locks into the fire element. The Ling clan of Flower City is bound to water, and every other noble house has its anchored element. He let out a self-deprecating huff. But I drew the short straw. Even with innate awakening, my first ring landed randomly on ice. Huang Long blinked, then broke into a wide grin. That's still awesome. Ice affinities are incredibly rare. Rare, yes, but also troublesome, Mu Ningyi replied. My ice ring clashes elementally with the blazing plumage birds native to the Mu clan's secret realm. I can't contract our clan's spirit beasts directly like my elder brothers. So what? Huang Long clapped his shoulder. You've got an innate awakening foundation, you'll definitely find a top-tier spirit beast. Speaking of which, since your first ring is ice, you can't have Lord of Flame. Did you unlock an innate talent at all? Mu Ningyi's footsteps faltered for a split second. He had unlocked one. The moment his innate awakening completed, a clear stream of information flooded his mind. Element Sovereign, ranked 4th on the talent leaderboard. It granted universal elemental affinity and defense for all elements except the 4 mystic elements. Guaranteed a different elemental attribute for each new Beast Tamer ring he unlocked, and let him wield a portion of his contracted spirit beast's elemental power. But that night, his great-uncle had summoned him to the study and told him something else. There's an anomaly in your talent scan. Beneath the element sovereign signature lies a second energy fluctuation. Faint, but I can confirm it's not interference noise. What does that mean? You may possess a second innate talent. A second talent? Throughout Blue Star's recorded history, beast tamers with dual talents can be counted on one hand, fewer than 10 in total. His great-uncle stared at him. I do not know what this second talent is, why it remains sealed, or how to unlock it. That night, Mu Ningyi stood before his mirror for hours. He tried to sense that second fluctuation. Yet no matter how hard he focused his spiritual power, he could only feel the broad, warm domain of Element Sovereign. Only his great-uncle and himself knew of this secret. Huang Long waited for his reply. Ai, what are you zoning out about? Mu Ningyi snapped back to reality. I did awaken a talent. But great-uncle said no one can speak of it before the official testing on Monday. That mysterious? Huang Long blinked. Not even me. You'll find out on Monday. They reached the gate of an old residential complex as the sunset sank between towering skyscrapers. This is your stop. Mu Ningyi halted. Don't stay up late grinding dungeons these next 2 days. Practice meditation to replenish your spiritual power. Got it, Mother Hen. Huang Long waved, took 2 steps away, then turned back. Ai. See you Monday. Mu Ningyi stood bathed in golden twilight and nodded softly. See you Monday. He watched his friend vanish into the apartment stairwell, then turned and walked alone down the streets, deepening into dusk. An ice-blue beast tamer ring surfaced silently in the palm of his hand. Supplementary world-building notes. Beast tamer ranks. Novice, Intermediate, Advanced, General Spirit, Lord Spirit King, Spirit Emperor, Spirit, Sovereign, Divine Beast Tamer. Every major rank breakthrough may unlock an additional Beast Tamer ring. This ring has a fully random elemental affinity. Spirit Beast ranks follow the same tier system. All tiers below Spirit Emperor require formal assessment at the Beast Tamer Association's regional branches. Spirit Emperor and above are classified as national top-tier combatants. They need only sufficient spiritual power and a matching rank Spirit Beast for recognition. Element classification. Basic elements most common: metal, wood, water, fire, earth, wind. Rare elements scarcer: lightning, ice, poison, sound, light, shadow, blood. Mystic elements: time, space, sacred, spirit. Special spirit beast categories: legendary spirit beasts, bloodlines that once produced divine beasts within their species. Primordial beasts, unique, heaven-favored creatures with no other living kin. The Mu Clan Manor sat in Spirit Pivot District, the western suburbs of Magic City. The entire zone was enclosed by a high-grade formation spanning 10 li in all directions, its spiritual energy density several times higher than the outside world. As dusk fell, the outlines of the manor compound flickered through pale violet spiritual mist, resembling a slumbering colossal beast. Mu Ningyi approached the wrought iron gate and pulled out his keys, when rustling sounded from the shrubbery. Young Yi's home. Steward Li Wei poked half his torso out from behind a half-trimmed holly bush, pruning shears still clutched in one hand. The elderly man had served the Mu clan for over 25 years. Though 60 years old, his face looked no older than 40, a spirit general's vitality far surpassed ordinary humans. "Hey, Uncle Li." Mu Ningyi waved. "Are great-uncle and great-aunt back? Where's second brother?" "The master and mistress returned half an hour ago." "How hasn't?" Li Wei tilted his head mid-sentence and smiled. "Speak of the devil. There he comes." Before the words faded, a tawny blur streaked out from the path. It moved at blistering speed, whipping up an earthen-scented gust, with tiny blue-white electric arcs crackling across the ground in its wake. The shadow skidded to a halt before him, a canine spirit beast standing knee-high. It had sandstone-like scales covering its entire body, with faint blue lightning weaving through the gaps between the armor. A thunderhound, a dual lightning earth spirit beast with a maximum racial cap of Spirit Emperor. This was Mu Ninghao's second contracted beast, already at level 19 peak, one hair's breadth from breaking through to intermediate spirit beast. It circled Mu Ningyi twice, sniffed his trouser cuffs, let out a listless whine. Then it flopped back onto a bed of purple spirit crystal soil beside the fountain. Mu Ningyi glanced at the crystal purple soil beneath the thunderhound and twitched his mouth faintly. His second brother had laid a full mattress. He used a half-square meter of this gram-priced purple spirit crystal just as a bed for the beast, wasting it like worthless dirt. "Uncle Li, about second brother's bed." Mu Ningyi nodded toward the glowing purple ground. Li Wei chuckled and resumed trimming the holly. "A house says Lazy's been stuck at level 19 peak for nearly a month. He laid it thick so it can absorb energy comfortably, hoping it breaks through this weekend." The moment he finished speaking, the half-lidded thunderhound perked its ears, scrambled to its feet, and sprinted toward the manor gates. Mu Ninghao was here. A streak of crimson light doved down from the twilight. A blazing plumage bird, its scarlet feathers burning like flame, trailed embers from its tail plumes as it landed precisely atop the stone lion flanking the gate, folding its wings and lifting its head proudly. This fire affinity spirit beast, raised to level 26, mid-advanced spirit beast, boasted a racial cap of spirit sovereign, the ancestral contracted beast passed down through the Mu clan's secret realm for nearly 10,000 years. As a direct bloodline heir of the Mu clan, Mu Ninghao naturally possessed the Lord of Flame talent, ranked 14th on the talent leaderboard. The talent granted fire elemental affinity, accelerated fire cultivation, and boosted spiritual power recovery. It worked best within fire-rich environments, binding the Mu clan's blazing plumage birds to its descendants for generations. Mu Ninghao himself followed close behind the bird. 17 years old, a sophomore in high school. He was already an advanced beast tamer, standing an excellent chance of breaking through to Spirit General before graduating. Spotting Mu Ningyi by the gate, his eyes lit up, and he strode over in 3 quick steps. "Well, this is a rare sight. Our little ice block waiting for his second brother at the gate." Mu Ninghao bent down to ruffle the thunder hound rushing to greet him, then straightened to grab the backpack. He tried to take the bag slung over Mu Ningyi's shoulder. "Don't touch it." Mu Ningyi stepped back half a pace. "Your hands are dirty." Mu Ninghao glanced at his fingers dusted with purple spirit crystal powder. He let out an exaggerated sigh. "My heart's broken. Ever since you awakened your ice beast tamer ring, you've grown distant from your second brother. Fire and ice can never coexist. Ancient wisdom truly holds true." His retort was cut short by a clear bird's chirp. The blazing plumage bird spread its wings from the stone lion, glided over Mu Ninghao's head, and settled lightly on Mu Ningyi's shoulder, nuzzling the youth's ear affectionately. Mu Ninghao stared blankly. "Ming, you traitor." The bickering brothers walked to the manor doors. The fingerprint lock emitted a soft beep, and the twin doors slid open. Warm golden light washed over them, carrying a sweet flavor. A white jade fruit platter sat on the living room coffee table, holding 3 fist-sized crimson fruits. Mu Ningyi's great-uncle Mu Bo leaned against the sofa, reading a holographic brief. He closed it at the sound. He waved the boys over. "You're back? Come here, fresh firethorn fruits, 1 each." Mu Ninghao had already darted forward to grab one, biting a huge mouthful and speaking around the fruit. "Father, you're a spirit emperor. These fruits do nothing for you. You should save them for eldest brother." Mu Bo shot him a sharp glare, snatched the remaining half-fruit from his son's hand, and tossed it. It landed into Mu Ningyi's arms. "Your eldest brother attends the Imperial Beast Tamer University. He has access to far finer treasures. Focus on your own advanced beast tamer cultivation. If you can't break through to Spirit General before graduation next year, I'll dump you into the secret realm to fight swarms of blazing plumage birds for territory." Mu Ninghao shrank his neck and fell silent, devouring his fruit. Mu Ningyi clutched his fire-thorn fruit, channeling a wisp of spiritual power to activate his element sovereign talent. He could clearly sense the warm, mellow fire spiritual energy flowing within the fruit, pulsing gently. The energy seeped into his body and merged smoothly with the foundation of his spiritual power, no trace of rejection. Satisfied with his observation, he withdrew his spiritual power. If a scanner had been monitoring him, its readings would have dropped instantly to blank. Did it work? Mu Bo watched him closely. Mu Ningyi nodded. Mu Bo's gaze lingered on his face a second longer. "Have you thought through Monday's testing?" Mu Ningyi set the fruit down. "Of course." "Good." Mu Bo closed his holographic brief. "The Manor's diagnostic equipment measured your base spiritual power the day you underwent innate awakening." Mu Ningyi froze mid-motion. "What was the reading?" "I didn't tell you then, fearing it would weigh on you." Mu Bo glanced at him. 100 points, and likely higher." A 3-second silence hung heavy in the living room. Mu Ninghao's eyes bulged wide. "How much? Over 100? Father, are you saying Ai's base spiritual power exceeds 100 points?" Mu Bo replied flatly, "Yes." "That makes him a transcendent." Mu Ninghao shouted. "Correct." Mu Bo explained. "A transcendent is defined as anyone with base spiritual power above 100 points. They break through to intermediate beast tamer the moment they contract their first spirit beast." Mu Ningyi gripped the fire-thorn fruit, lost in quiet thought for a long while. He knew exactly what 100 points signified. Most ordinary awakeners only registered 30 to 50 points after awakening. All innate awakeners surpassed 80. But 100 was a universally recognized threshold across the entire beast tamer world. Those who crossed it were named transcendents. The association maintained a dedicated watch list for every transcendent. They tracked their growth long-term, not solely for their innate talent, but because every transcendent throughout history boasted growth curves far beyond all predictions. "How much?" "Over 100. Mu Ninghao cried out again. "Father, you said Ai's base spiritual power." "Yes." Mu Bo's tone remained calm. "It surpassed 100 points." Mu Ninghao parted his lips, turning to stare at Mu Ningyi with eyes that had completely shifted, as if he were gazing at a cub that had just bared its claws. Mu Ningyi, however, merely stared down at his palm. His ice-blue Beastmaster ring had not materialized, yet a faint wisp of cold swirled at his fingertips. Over 100 points. A transcendent prodigy. What would these 2 labels bring upon him? The school's scrutiny, the association's surveillance, and countless pairs of eyes fixed on him for years to come. Still, he had no other choice. His psychic power and Beastmaster ring already existed. He could not, nor would he, pretend they were not there. How much psychic power did eldest brother awaken with back then? Mu Ningyi suddenly spoke up. 87, Mu Bo replied. Your second brother had 78. You are the only member of the Mu clan in recent generations to cross the transcendent threshold. Even your grandfather only registered 85 at his awakening. Mu Ninghao finally fished the firethorn berry out of the fruit platter and bit down hard to steady his nerves. A transcendent prodigy. A.E. Do you know how many transcendent prodigies emerged among the innate awakeners of the 9th grade across Magic City last year? Mu Ningyi shook his head. Only 3 in Magic City last year. The Dragon Empire barely sees 24 annually. Mu Ninghao fixed his gaze on him. Even if you hide your talent and never use it, your foundation as a transcendent prodigy alone will make every elite high school fight over you. Mu Bo nodded in agreement. High psychic power is indeed a rigid benchmark, but it only means faster cultivation speed. What truly determines a Beastmaster's upper limit is the attribute of their Beastmaster ring and their compatibility with their contracted spirit beasts. You've awakened an ice ring, which clashes entirely with the Mu clan's inherited fire system. You'll need to deliberate carefully when choosing your contracted spirit beast. Mu Ninghao cut in. Why not let Ae test his luck in the clan's secret realm? Have you lost your wits? Mu Bo cut him off sharply. The secret realm our family guards has nurtured fire-attributed spirit beasts for nearly 10,000 years. The beast packs there are fiercely exclusive. An ice spirit beast would not survive 3 months inside. You want to send Ae in there? Mu Ningyi leaned back against the sofa and fell silent for a moment. Then I'll find one on my own. On your own. Mu Bo turned to face him. Do you know which regions ice spirit beasts inhabit? The habits of ice beasts of different tiers? How to judge a beast's potential ceiling? Mu Ningyi said nothing. He truly did not know. Mu Bo paused, softening his tone. I never said you couldn't look by yourself. But you know nothing right now. Tomorrow, head to the Spirit Beast Trade Center first. Familiarize yourself with the common ice spirit beasts on the market, their price ranges, and what marks superior stock. No rush to pick one. Just get a feel for them. It's quiet there right now, before the mass awakening ceremonies kick off. Mu Ningyi blinked in surprise. No rush to pick one. Absolutely not, Mu Bo stated. Most beasts sold at the trade center are either artificially bred or captured wild specimens tamed afterward. Their quality varies wildly, and prices are inflated with huge markups. As a novice, you can't even read a beast's bone age or spiritual energy purity. You'd get swindled and thank the merchants for it. He lifted his teacup and took a sip. Once your awakening ceremony is over, I'll personally take you to the Northern Ice Tundra. The Northern Ice Tundra? Mu Ninghao's eyes widened. You mean that wild, frozen expanse in the northern reaches of the Dragon Empire? That's the one. Mu Bo set down his cup. It holds the Empire's densest habitats for ice spirit beasts. Crystal butterflies, snow wolves, frost-feathered cranes, ice serpents. 80% of all well-known ice spirit beasts on the market can be found there. He looked to Mu Ningyi. Your parents spent 2 full years researching spirit beasts on the tundra back in their day. Their research journals hold exhaustive records of ice beast nesting grounds and behavioral patterns. When you go, it'll be like. He trailed off, leaving the sentence unfinished. Mu Ningyi knew what he had meant. Like visiting the places your parents once saw, for them. Silence settled over the living room for a beat. Mu Ningyi stared down at the firethorn berry cupped in his palm. Its peel was thinner than cicada wings, glowing with flowing crimson radiance, like a tiny flame sealed inside its husk. His parents had dedicated their research to spirit plants just like this, the symbiosis between spirit beasts and flora, the micro-mechanisms of spiritual energy circulation, alternative paths to awakening. He had no memories of them at all. When he was 6 months old, their research flight bound for South America crashed mid-storm. No one aboard survived. Mu Ningyi was raised by the Mu clan. His grandfather had secluded himself for decades in pursuit of the Spirit Emperor realm, so great-uncle Mu Bo and great-aunt had raised him as their own son. His elder and second brothers had never treated him like an outsider. When he turned 5, he had asked his great-uncle, "What were my parents like?" Mu Bo had stayed quiet a long time before answering. They understood spirit beasts better than anyone. Better even than I do. Great-uncle, Mu Ningyi spoke, his voice steadier than he'd expected. Can we still find their research base on the tundra? Mu Bo shot him a glance. The outpost still stands. Abandoned, but the buildings haven't collapsed. If you want to see it, I'll take you there. Mu Ningyi nodded. All right. Mu Bo did not linger on the subject, steering the conversation back on track. Our trip to the tundra is set for after your awakening ceremony. Schools grant newly awakened beast masters a leave of absence to contract their spirit beasts once the ritual concludes. With that, Mu Bo stood and headed for the stairs. He halted after 2 steps. Firethorn berries nourish your psychic power. Eat the remaining one, don't waste it. Even as a transcendent prodigy, the firmer your foundational power, the greater room you'll have to break through your limits later. Footsteps echoed upward along the staircase, fading into the distance, followed by the soft click of a second-floor door closing. Only the 3 of them remained in the living room. The 2 brothers, and a blazing plumage bird perched atop the sofa, tilting its head to watch them. The last firethorn berry sat untouched in the fruit platter, its crimson glow rippling gently. Mu Ninghao tossed his berry core into the trash can and sidled over. Hey, let me come with you to the trade center tomorrow. I've already contracted 2 spirit beasts, after all. I've got way more experience judging stock than you. Mu Ningyi glanced at him. What about your cultivation? Doesn't Thunderpaw need to break through to advanced tier soon? One morning won't make a difference. Mu Ninghao waved a hand dismissively. Besides, it's your first time picking a beast, or rather, your first time even looking at them. I need to be there as your advisor. Otherwise, vendors will swindle you blind. You won't tell high-quality stock from garbage. Mu Ningyi fell silent for 2 seconds. Fine. Mu Ninghao broke into a grin and clapped him on the shoulder. And don't let the title Transcendent Prodigy weigh on you. With the Mu clan backing you, the association won't dare move against you openly. Your ice ring isn't a problem either. If we can't find a suitable beast on the tundra, we'll buy one from ice-attributed aristocratic clans. If none exist in the Dragon Empire, we'll look abroad. Remember how I got my Earth Thunder Hound? His voice dropped slightly. Besides, if your uncle and aunt knew you'd become a transcendent prodigy, they'd probably dig out every research journal in their study. They would rewrite them all out of joy. Mu Ningyi's fingers tightened imperceptibly around his palm. Mu Ninghao did not stay long. He patted his shoulder once more and turned for the stairs. At the landing, he waved without looking back. Sleep early tonight. Don't oversleep tomorrow morning. I'll wake you. The living room felt utterly quiet at last. Mu Ningyi sat alone on the sofa, clutching the firethorn berry. His ice-blue Beastmaster ring materialized soundlessly in his palm, thin tendrils of cold seeping outward, crisp and pure against the warm yellow lamplight. He bit into the berry. Warm spiritual energy slid down his throat, settling softly within his psychic sea. Tomorrow, the Trade Center. Monday, the Awakening Ceremony. Afterward, the Northern Ice Tundra. He tossed the berry core into the trash and climbed the stairs. Mu Ningyi woke to pale gray dawn light seeping through the gap in the curtains. He grabbed the terminal from his nightstand to check the time, 7:23 a.m. He'd feared insomnia the night before, yet he'd slept far better than expected. No tossing and turning, no strange dreams. The second he roused, 3 words sprung unbidden to his mind: Trade Center. When he finished washing up and headed downstairs, the living room was already occupied. Mu Ninghao sat at the dining table with a bowl of congee, stirring it idly with a spoon. His Earth Thunder Hound crouched beside his chair, chewing a strip of dried meat it had stolen. Its cheeks were puffing in and out. The blazing plumage bird was gone, likely out for its dawn flight. Awake. Mu Ninghao glanced up, twisting his terminal screen toward him. I looked it up. Magic City Spirit Beast Trade Center opens at 9 a.m. Hall 3 specializes in ice and water attributed beasts. We'll leave right after breakfast. Timing's perfect. Mu Ningyi sat across from him and filled his own bowl, pausing before lifting his spoon. What time did you get up? Past 6. Mu Ninghao yawned. Thunderpaw woke at dawn and insisted on a run. I had no choice. He shot a disdainful look at the hound gnawing meat at his feet. Eat and sleep, sleep and eat. Sometimes I wonder which one of us is the actual Beastmaster. The Earth Thunder Hound paid him no mind, fully focused on its treat. Mu Ningyi took a slow spoonful of congee. Warm rice fragrance slid down his throat. He suddenly noticed how quiet the morning meal felt. Great Uncle was absent. Uncle Lee was trimming holly bushes, and Great Aunt would not be down for hours. They stepped outside once they finished eating, and Magic City streets were already stirring. The January dawn carried a sharp chill, with a thin layer of spiritual mist hanging in the air. This was a byproduct of the city-grade spirit gathering formation. Denser mist meant the formation was operating at peak efficiency. Pedestrians strolled past with their spirit beasts in tow. An elderly man was followed by a fire-tailed fox, tiny flames flickering at the tip of its tail in the morning breeze. Far above, a low-altitude hovercar skimmed over rooftops. It carried an eagle-like spirit beast with folded wings, its plumage solid black, only its eyes glowing dull gold. Mu Ninghao hailed a floating taxi, gave the driver their destination, then rested his eyes. Mu Ningyi sat beside him, watching the cityscape roll past the window. Magic City was enormous. 10,000 years ago, the original blue planet had been a 50th of its current size. Back then, Magic City was nothing more than a tiny coastal township. Today it spanned the territory of 3 former provinces, layered buildings climbing from ground level all the way up into cloud cover. The lower districts hummed with the bustle of old urban neighborhoods. The middle districts housed commercial plazas and administrative hubs. The upper districts floated suspended compounds belonging to every major spirit beast association. These sky compounds were strung like pearls across the sky. The cries of spirit beasts rose from every corner of the metropolis, weaving through the dawn wind into a unique white noise. Almost there, Mu Ninghao mumbled without opening his eyes. The hovercar descended, gliding through the commercial tiers of the middle district. Mu Ningyi caught sight of the massive hemispherical building below. It was silver-white all over, its surface etched with flowing luminous runes, resembling a giant seashell pressed flat against the earth. 6 glowing holographic characters hovered above the main entrance, Spirit Beast Trade Center. A lengthy queue had already formed out front. Mu Ninghao paid the fare and hopped out, brushing wrinkles from his clothes. Let's go. We'll hit opening hour exactly. Stick close to me inside. Watch more, speak less. Don't get too attached to any beasts here. Their quality won't be top tier. Later, Father will take you to the ice tundra to find a proper match. If we strike out there, we'll buy from foreign markets or trade with Ice Clan aristocrats. There's bound to be a high-potential beast suited for you. Mu Ningyi shot him a glance. I know. We're from the Mu clan. We won't lack options for a spirit beast while I'm still growing. Mu Ninghao let out a quiet laugh. Though you hardly look like an experienced hand. After all, his second brother's two beasts, one contracted in the clan's secret realm, the other imported at great cost from the Thunder Empire. I'm 17 with two contracted spirit beasts. One pulled straight from a secret realm, Mu Ninghao declared confidently. That's experience, not old age. Come on, let's go. The trade center's interior was far vaster than Mu Ningyi had imagined. Though he barely reacted, he visited the clan's secret realm regularly after all. A holographic directory screen at the entry marked 10 element-specific trading halls. Metal, wood, water, ice, fire, thunder, earth, wind, poison, sound. Hall 3 sat on the building's east wing, clearly labeled Ice Attributed. A wide corridor led from the entrance to the hall, lined with transparent spiritual energy barrier walls housing countless spirit beast display enclosures. Fur-covered cubs curled asleep in temperature-controlled incubators. Fully grown beasts paced simulated natural habitats. Vendors stood behind counters calling out to customers. Uniformed association clerks recorded each beast's quality grade nearby. The air carried a tangled scent, lingering spiritual energy, beast musk, dried fodder, and sanitizer mixed together, sharp yet unfamiliar. Mu Ningyi followed Mu Ninghao into Hall 3. Every surface within sight was washed in shades of blue and white. Ice spirit beasts, as far as the eye could see. Mu Ninghao slowed his pace. Take your time looking. No rush. Mu Ningyi did not hurry toward the top floor. He paused at the entrance for several seconds, scanning the hall's full layout. A circular design with an open central void. This design offered clear views of the two lower levels. The ground floor held the densest beast enclosures and the largest crowds. The second floor was sparser. The top third floor remained quietest. Let's start with the ground floor, Mu Ningyi said. Mu Ninghao frowned slightly. The stock down here's subpar, nothing worth lingering over. I'll just glance before heading up. Mu Ningyi had already started toward the stairs. As Mu Ninghao had warned, the ground floor beasts paled in quality against those on the top tier. Most ice beast cubs listlessly huddled. They stayed in the corners of their enclosures or paced repetitive circles, clear signs of prolonged captivity. The potential ceilings listed on each info screen rarely exceeded advanced or warrior tier. General tier specimens were rare finds, priced far lower than those upstairs. Mu Ningyi stopped before a crystal butterfly enclosure. Its wings bore obvious frayed edges, their luster dulled. The info screen read, Potential Ceiling, Advanced Spirit Beast, Price, 26,000 credits. He studied it briefly, then moved on without lingering. He came to an abrupt halt halfway down Hall 3's central aisle. Before him loomed a towering holographic info screen scrolling the trade center's full layout and element classification breakdown. A bold header blazed across the top, Element Classified Spirit Beast Trading Halls. Below it sat a list of the 10 elements, each paired with a spirit beast illustration. Metal, wood, water, fire, earth, wind, thunder, ice, poison, sound, arranged in an order he could not yet decipher. Mu Ningyi stood transfixed for a long stretch of time. Mu Ninghao wandered over. What are you staring at? Second brother. Mu Ningyi did not turn his head, his gaze fixed. He looked firmly on the display. Why are there only 10 elements listed here? Mu Ninghao blinked in confusion. What do you mean, why? 17 distinct attributes can manifest in awakened Beastmaster rings. Mu Ningyi explained. Yet the trade center only runs halls for 10. I get that rare mystic elements, space, time, psychic, holy, lack dedicated halls. But light, dark, and blood have no dedicated spaces either. This is Magic City's largest spirit beast trade center. Surely they stock at least a few of those beasts. Mu Ninghao thought it over. Light and dark beasts do exist, just in tiny numbers. Very few awaken light or dark rings, so trade volume can't sustain separate halls. They're merged into other sections. As for blood, he tilted his head to glance at Mu Ningyi. You already know why. Mu Ningyi nodded. Most blood-attributed spirit beasts were inherently bloodthirsty, their aura fiercely corrosive to psychic power. Novice beastmasters could barely contain them, often suffering brutal backlash. After 10,000 years of natural attrition, virtually no Awakeners manifested Blood Beastmaster rings anymore. Without Beastmasters seeking them, there was no market for blood beasts at all. Let's head to the top floor. Mu Ningyi tore his eyes away from the screen and walked toward the stairs. Mu Ninghao trailed after him, muttering under his breath. You're treating this place like a classroom. 2. The starkest divide between the ground floor and top tier lay not in the variety of beasts, but their vitality. The lower-level beasts appeared lethargic, drained, their inner light snuffed out by endless confinement. Even when lying still, every beast on the top floor held a sharp, wild glint in their eyes, proof their primal instincts had not been fully tamed, their untapped potential not exhausted. 4. Inside the first cabin rested a snow wolf, nearly twice the size of the one downstairs, its shoulder height reaching close to an adult human's knee. Its coat was almost pure white, marked only by a deep indigo stripe running down its spine, stretching from its forehead all the way to the base of its tail, like a river frozen solid. 6. Instead of lying prone, it stood atop an ice dais, tail hanging low, its gaze sweeping calmly over the people outside the cabin. The info screen read, Snow Wolf, Tier 5, Ice Attribute. Maximum Potential, King Class Spirit Beast. Price, Negotiable. 8. Mu Ningyi stood before the screen for several seconds. King Class Potential. Such a label on the first floor would draw a crowd packing the entire corridor. Up on the top floor, though, this was merely the first beast. This snow wolf has exceptional quality. Mu Ninghao sidled over and lowered his voice. Its bloodline is remarkably pure. That indigo stripe along its spine is the signature marking of the glacial snow wolf. Captive breeding rarely yields specimens this fine. The King Class Potential rating is hardly exaggerated. Mu Ningyi said nothing. His eyes were fixed on the snow wolf's gaze, serene yet watchful, carrying the distinctive assessing stare of creatures born to the snow plains, lacking the restlessness seen in the spirit beasts downstairs. 11. It watched them just as intently as they watched it. He stood there for roughly 10 seconds, then moved on to the next cabin. The second cabin housed an ice blue butterfly, nearly double the size of the ice crystal butterfly downstairs, its fully unfurled wings spanning nearly half a meter. 13. Fine crystalline veins lined the edges of its wings, refracting layered shades of blue beneath the cold light, resembling a frozen kaleidoscope. It did not fly, instead perched atop an ice crystal pillar, its wings slowly fluttering open and shut. 15. The info screen read, Ice Crystal Butterfly, Tier 4, Ice Attribute. Maximum Potential, General Class Spirit Beast. Price, Negotiable. 16. A General Class Sealing Ice Crystal Butterfly, Mu Ninghao remarked. Very few specimens of this strain ever reached General Class Potential, barely 1 out of 100. Mu Ningyi nodded and pressed onward. Third cabin. Fourth. Fifth. 18. He made his way down the row, pausing long enough at each spirit beast enclosure to memorize their physical quality, tier, potential ceiling, and mental state. 19. Snowdown foxes, frost plume cranes, glacial pythons, ice hedgehogs. While the varieties on the top floor were fundamentally identical to those on the first, every beast boasted noticeably superior condition and temperament. There was weight in their eyes, not the numbed obedience of over-domesticated creatures, but a quiet poise born of knowing their own worth. 21. When he reached the seventh cabin, Mu Ningyi abruptly slowed his pace. 22. This spirit beast was tiny, the smallest ice-attributed creature he had seen all day. Curled in the cabin's corner, it was covered in thin, short pale blue down, as if it had only recently hatched from its egg. Its body stretched barely longer than an adult's palm, paired with an out-of-proportion fluffy tail tipped with a small clump of ice. 24. It was not asleep. It had buried its head in its tail, leaving only one half-lidded eye to gaze out at the world. 25. The info screen read, Ice Fluff Beast Juvenile, Tier 1, Ice Attribute. Maximum Potential, Unknown. Price, 38,000. Mu Ningyi stared at the line, Maximum Potential, Unknown, for a long time. 27. Ice Fluff Beast. Mu Ninghao leaned in to explain. A native glacial species occupying the bottom of the food chain, weak in both attack and defense. Most max out at intermediate tier. Rare mutants, however, can break through to advanced or even warrior class. It's a gamble, hence the low price. 38,000 makes it the cheapest offering on the top floor. He glanced at Mu Ningyi's expression. You think it's cute? 29. Mu Ningyi did not answer. He kept watching the ice fluff beast's half-lidded eye, lazy and detached, as if all the bustle of the world held no bearing on it at all. 30. Then the little beast lifted its head slightly from its tail. The single exposed eye rolled, locking directly onto Mu Ningyi's gaze. It did not look away. Neither did Mu Ningyi. 32. Separated by a transparent cabin wall, human and beast held eye contact for roughly 5 seconds. There was something singular in the ice fluff beast's eyes. No wariness, no curiosity, no desperate attempts to curry favor. 33. Only a simple acknowledgement of his presence, plain and unremarkable, like two snowdrifts resting side by side across the ice plains. After a moment, the ice fluff beast tucked its head back into its tail and fell still once more. 35. Mu Ningyi tore his gaze away, but did not move forward immediately. He stood rooted, scanning the layout of every spirit beast cabin on the top floor, before turning toward the next enclosure. He finished viewing the remaining cabins. He memorized the name, tier, potential ceiling, and distinguishing traits of all 42 ice-attributed spirit beasts on the top floor. 37. In the invisible checklist he kept in his mind, he marked a tiny circle beside the ice fluff beast's entry. When he stepped out through the trade center's main doors, the January sun hung high overhead, spilling soft warmth over everything it touched. 39. Mu Ningyi stretched lazily. Well, any catch your eye? 40. Mu Ningyi thought for a moment. Nothing I'm set on, but one has piqued my interest. 41. Which one? 42. The ice fluff beast. Mu Ningyi fell silent for 2 beats. That tier 1 runt with unknown potential, priced at 38,000. 44. MHM. 45. Why? 46. Mu Ningyi stared down at his palm. An ice blue beast tamer ring flickered faintly on his skin for a split second before vanishing without a trace. 47. It stared at me for a long time, he said. Mu Ningyi opened his mouth to argue, but only clicked his tongue in resignation. Fine then. Father always said the glacial plains are where the real prizes lie. We'll leave this thought for now. Once you return from the ice fields, if you're still fixated on that little thing, we can revisit the idea. He paused, adding a word of caution. Though I'd suggest shoving the ice fluff beast to the very bottom of your backup list. Wild juveniles found in the glacial plains boast far superior bloodline quality to anything we've seen today. Your parents' old journals are full of records documenting spirit beast habitats there. Following those notes to hunt one down is far more reliable than rolling the dice here. Mu Ningyi nodded. Understood. 51. He climbed into the car, leaned back against the seat, and watched the city streets slide past the window. The ice fluff beast's half-lidded eye flickered repeatedly in his thoughts. Outside the window, the suspended skyscrapers of Central Magic City glowed with a soft silvery sheen beneath midday sunlight. Distant cries of spirit beasts drifted on the wind, pitched higher than they had been at dawn, as if the city itself breathed to a different rhythm at noon. 53. Mu Ningyi looked away and closed his eyes briefly. The day after tomorrow, the awakening ceremony, then the glacial plains, and that tiny creature that had shared 5 seconds of unbroken eye contact with him. 55. Sunlight seeped through the curtains, brighter than it had been the past 2 days, rousing Mu Ningyi from sleep. He glanced at his terminal. 6:47 in the morning. 2 hours remained until school assembly. He lay motionless for a while, neither shifting nor rising. The ceiling blushed pale ash-white in the morning glow, like a blank sheet of paper waiting to be inscribed with the events of the day, and there would be many. 57. By the time he washed up and headed downstairs, the living room buzzed with far more activity than it had the day prior. His great-uncle sat at the head of the dining table with a cup of tea before him, a holographic briefing hovering at his left elbow, its screen frozen on the notice titled Magic City Beast Tamer Association Annual Awakening Assessment Announcement. 59. His aunt and Xing stood in the kitchen doorway holding a plate of freshly steamed pastries, smiling when she spotted Mu Ningyi descending the stairs. Awake? Come eat while they're still warm. Mu Ningyi was already seated in his usual spot, a rare sight without his phone in hand. He stared at his younger brother for several seconds before blurting out, "You didn't sleep in this morning." 61. I never sleep in, Mu Ningyi replied, sitting across from him. What I mean is, you're not so nervous you couldn't sleep. A wink suicide. Mu Ningyi picked up a pastry with his chopsticks. The night before my own awakening, I tossed and turned nonstop. You, though? Slept more soundly than usual. 63. Aunt and Xing tapped her younger son lightly on the head. Mu Yi's nothing like you. He's a congenital awakener. There's no reason for nerves. Mu Ningyi clutched his head and complained to his mother. Mom, quit ruining my fun. 65. It was true. Though the Mu clan was an ancient bloodline guarded by sovereign-class beast tamers, capable of hosting private awakening ceremonies within the family, Its youth still chose to undergo their official awakening at the unified ceremony organized by the Beast Tamer Association. It was a mark of respect for both the association and the government of Dragon Country. Mu Ningyi said nothing, lowering his head to sip kanji. Its temperature was perfect, warm but not scalding, sliding down his throat with a faint natural sweetness. 67. Ant and Qing always stirred a touch of spirit honey into the porridge, claiming it nourished mental energy. He could not say for certain whether it truly boosted spiritual power, but the flavor had been a constant part of his childhood, a ritual akin to checking his school bag before heading out. Mu Bo closed the holographic briefing, lifted his teacup for a sip, and turned to Mu Ningyi. Have you packed everything you need? 69. I brought my identification papers and the school notification slip. 70. Did you complete your spiritual power meditation? 71. Both yesterday evening and first thing this morning. Mu Bo nodded, asking no further questions. He set down his teacup, his tone steady and calm. Once you arrive at school, line up first for the spiritual power assessment, then proceed to the awakening ceremony. Resonating with the awakening crystal relies entirely on yourself. The equipment only provides auxiliary guidance. Success hinges on your mental and physical state in that moment. Mu Ninghao cut in from the side. Really, it all just comes down to luck, though. 74. Mu Bo shot him a sharp glance. Mu Yi is different. As a congenital awakener, resonance with the crystal is guaranteed 100%. He only needs to complete the standard procedure. 75. Mu Ningyi finished the last spoonful of kanji and stood. I'm leaving. Wait a moment. Mu Bo called after him, pulling a silver badge from his pocket and sliding it across the table. Take this with you. 77. Mu Ningyi glanced down at it. Etched across its surface was a flame-shaped crest, with a tiny character Mu carved dead center, the clan insignia of the Mu household, rarely worn save for formal occasions. Association officials will be present at the school today, Mu Bo explained. Wearing this will mark you as part of the Mu clan. No one will hassle you over administrative formalities. 79. He met Mu Ningyi's eyes. But the matter of your awakened talent is entirely your own choice. This badge merely spares you unnecessary trouble, nothing more. Mu Ningyi slipped the badge into his pocket. I understand. 81. He turned toward the front door. Mu Ninghao's voice chased after him from the dining room. Don't panic. Whatever you do, don't get overexcited and faint on the spot. 82. Mu Bo's voice followed immediately after. Can you not wish your brother misfortune for once? Mu Ningyi did not look back, waving a hand as he pushed open the front gate and stepped outside. 84. Biting January cold washed over him, chillier than he had anticipated. Dawn had fully broken over Magic City. The spirit mist hung thinner than it had the past 2 days, visibility crystal clear. He could make out the silhouettes of distant suspended skyscrapers glinting bright silver in the sunlight. Pedestrians and spirit beasts already populated the streets. A snow-white spirit cat perched atop a street lamp post sunning itself, its tail tipped dangling and swaying gently back and forth. 86. Mu Ningyi stood for a moment, drawing a deep breath that filled his lungs with frigid air. He did not call a ride. The Mu clan villa was a 15-minute walk from school, and he preferred to travel on foot. 88. He had traversed this route countless times before, yet everything felt different today. Steam curling from street-side breakfast stalls, breeding crates displayed outside spirit beast shops, weekend event notices plastered to public bulletin boards. Details he had never truly noticed before now seized his full attention. Perhaps he knew that after today, all these ordinary sights would carry entirely new weight in his life. 90. A crowd had already gathered at the school gates. Class 6, Grade 9's assembly point sat on the eastern side of the sports field. As he approached, he spotted several familiar faces from afar. Huang Long lingered at the edge of the group, clutching a white envelope in one hand, and waved wildly when he caught sight of Mu Ningyi. Hey, over here. 92. Mu Ningyi walked over. You arrived this early? 93. I got here at 6:30. Huang Long grinned, then dropped his voice to a hush. Couldn't sleep at all. Tossed and turned all night, my mind racing, wondering what the awakening crystal looks like, how it feels to touch, panicking what if I fail. He trailed off, sizing Mu Ningyi up and down. How come you look exactly the same as usual? Aren't you nervous at all? 95. Huang Long clicked his tongue as a thought struck him. Right, you've got nothing to worry about. But what exactly is your talent anyway? 96. We'll find out after the assessment. Mu Ningyi cut him off. Huang Long tactfully fell silent, clapping his friend on the shoulder. All right, I won't pester you. Either way, today's a huge milestone for both of us. We'll go through this side by side. 98. The line on the eastern sports field began shuffling forward. Head teacher Li Yao stood at its front, clutching a name register, cross-referencing each student's information one by one. Mu Ningyi watched several figures vanish inside the building. The assessment center occupied a renovated section on the third floor of the teaching block, normally off-limits to students and only opened on Awakening Day. 100. The line moved faster than Mu Ningyi had expected. Batches of 3 to 5 students were admitted every few minutes, most emerging a dozen minutes later with wildly varying expressions. Some ecstatic, some blank with confusion, others utterly impassive. Teachers guided those who had finished to the opposite end of the sports field, separated from the waiting crowd by a wide gap. 102. Huang Long stood directly ahead of Mu Ningyi. As he stepped into the assessment center, he glanced back, his lips moving silently. Mu Ningyi could not hear the words, but reading his lip shape, it was something along the lines of "wait for my good news." The interior of the assessment center was far plainer than Mu Ningyi had imagined. The hall was split into 2 distinct zones. The spiritual power testing area on the left, lined with 5 assessment monitors side by side. The awakening ceremony area on the right, dominated by a translucent crystal standing half the height of an adult human, its base set into a recessed groove encircled by glowing runic induction patterns. This crystal had to be the awakening crystal, larger than the images he had seen in reference manuals, entirely clear with no surface markings, only a slow swirl of milky white light churning deep within its core. 105. Mu Ningyi noticed the staff manning the testing stations whispering among themselves, their gazes darting back and forth between the monitor screens and the students. A middle-aged man wearing an association badge stood behind the assessment machines, holding a data tablet and scanning the readout of every device in turn. Mu Ningyi. Teacher Li Yao called his name, adding a reassuring note. No need for nerves. You're a congenital awakener, success is guaranteed, and your spiritual power will definitely exceed 80 points. 107. Mu Ningyi offered Li Yao a small smile before turning and seating himself at the spiritual power testing station. Probes from the monitor pressed to either side of his temples, and the machine hummed a low, thrumming vibration, a near subsonic resonance rippling through his body and mind. He did not activate his latent talent. He simply sat quietly, letting the monitor run its course. 109. After roughly 10 seconds, the machine emitted a short, sharp beep. The operator glanced down at the screen and froze for a split second. 110. She said nothing, instead exchanging a silent glance with the middle-aged man wearing the association badge. The man stepped over, leaned down to examine the screen, and raised an eyebrow faintly before jotting notes onto his data tablet. 111. Only then did the operator speak again, her voice pitched half an octave higher than before. Initial spiritual power reading, 100 points. Threshold met. You may proceed to the awakening ceremony zone. As Mu Ningyi stood, he caught a faint stir rippling through the queue waiting behind him. 100 points. Isn't that the maximum baseline limit? Being a congenital awakener really is a cheat code. What he did not overhear, however, was the reaction of the association official beside the station. At the announcement of 100 points, the pen slipped from his grasp mid-right. He slowly lifted his head, shifting his gaze from the tablet to the operator. What was the reading? Exactly 100 points, the operator repeated, her tone still disbelieving. Initial spiritual power capped at a full 100. The middle-aged man remained quiet for a beat. He set the tablet down on the counter, walked to the side of the assessment monitor, and leaned in to study the screen firsthand. His finger swiped across the display to pull up the waveform graph, staring intently at the plotted curve for 5 full seconds. He straightened, turned back to the operator, and spoke in a lower but crystal-clear voice. The waveform spikes sharply upward at its tail end. The raw, unrounded value likely surpasses 100. We can only confirm the exact figure once you've formed a Spirit Beast contract. Even so, he paused. For now, we can confirm this student is an exceptional breaker. The operator's mouth fell open, and she instinctively lowered her voice. An exceptional breaker? The ones whose baseline spiritual power exceeds 100. Precisely. The official picked up his tablet to record the data. Any congenital awakener with initial spiritual power over 100 qualifies as an exceptional breaker. Only 3 emerged across all of Dragon Country last year, just 1 within Magic City. This year, he glanced up at Mu Ningyi's retreating figure heading toward the awakening ceremony zone, leaving the sentence unfinished. But the operator could read the rest plainly on his face. Magic City's first exceptional breaker of the year had just appeared. Mu Ningyi heard none of this exchange. He had already come to a stop directly before the awakening crystal. The guiding instructor gestured for him to stand half a meter away, raise both hands level, and hold his palms facing the crystal's surface. Close your eyes and empty your mental power. The instructor's voice was flat, as if he'd repeated the line 1,000 times. Don't force your mind on anything, nor resist thoughts on purpose. The awakening stone will naturally sense the fluctuations of your mental power. If resonance forms, you will see light within your consciousness. Tell me the moment you perceive it. Mu-Ningyi shut his eyes. He did not strive to empty his mind deliberately. Instead, he let his consciousness spread out like still water. All surrounding noise, the instructor's steady breathing, the distant footsteps of queuing classmates, the low hum of testing equipment, faded away, dissolving into a blurry backdrop. Amid the serene void, he could feel the presence of the awakening stone. The crystal manifested within his awareness as a gentle source of light, neither glaring nor flickering, merely a steady luminous orb suspended deep in his mind. He sensed his mental power drifting slowly toward that glow, like water flowing downhill. Then the light washed over him. It was not light in the visual sense, but a radiance closer to touch, being wrapped in something warm and translucent. The soft luminescence draped lightly over the surface of his mental power, never intruding, only resting against it, akin to soaking in perfectly tempered warm water. He heard his own voice break the quiet. I feel it. Good. Keep your eyes closed. Hold this state, and wait for the resonance to complete. The resonance process unfolded faster than Mu-Ningyi had anticipated. A dozen more seconds passed before the layer of light suddenly contracted inward, then solidified into an extremely distinct form. At the center of his mental power bloomed a ring-shaped luminous rune, pale blue and translucent, identical to the Ice Beast Tamer ring he summoned at home. Unlike before, it no longer only appeared on his palm, it resided at the very core of his consciousness. A clear note of surprise edged into the instructor's voice. Resonance complete. Beast Tamer ring affinity, ice element. Confirmed innate awakening status. Ring energy stable. Mu-Ningyi opened his eyes. He glanced down at his right palm. The ice blue rune surfaced soundlessly, brighter and steadier than it had ever been at home. Its presence felt far more tangible now, as if validated by the awakening stone and officially recorded in the Beast Tamer registry. As he turned, he noticed the middle-aged man wearing the association badge had wandered to the edge of the awakening zone, standing beside the control console watching him. The man's expression remained impassive, yet his gaze lingered briefly on the badge pinned to Mu-Ningyi's chest before shifting away. Stepping out of the testing center, the sunlight outside felt brighter than when he'd entered. The sports field teemed with students who'd finished their assessments, clustered in small groups chatting. He caught snatches of weeping, laughter, and excited gesturing from all directions. A few meters behind him, someone spoke in a tone straddling shock and envy. Did anyone see that guy? The mental power reading on the monitor by the testing station hit 100 points. 100? No way, really. I saw it with my own eyes. The small screen by the testing bench hadn't fully shut off. The number popped right up, and it was still climbing afterward. Holy hell, a breaker. Our school actually produced a breaker this year. Mu-Ningyi did not look back, continuing forward. Still, those words settled heavy in his ears, not pride, nor burden, but a sharp realization. Starting today, he would stand apart in everyone's eyes. Huang Long waved him over from a short distance away, his features far more relaxed than before entering, a faint smile tugging at his lips rather than wild elation. Mu-Ningyi walked up to him. Judging by your face, it worked out. Huang Long nodded, grinning sheepishly. It did. Earth element. He held up 4 fingers followed by 9. 49 mental power points. Not spectacular, but I cleared the threshold at last. Mu-Ningyi studied him earnestly. 49 points is already excellent for ordinary people. Awakening a Beast Tamer ring at all is rare. Only roughly 10% of humanity succeeds. That's exactly what I thought. Huang Long's grin widened fully. I can't compare to freak innate awakeners like you, but I'm officially a Beast Tamer now. Remember our promise? Enroll in Beast Tamer High together. Compete side by side in the National Beast Tamer Tournament. He leaned in, curiosity brimming. What about you? Your ice ring locked in, right? Is your mental power truly 100 points? Mu-Ningyi gave a short nod. Ice ring. Mental power exceeds 100 points. Huang Long's eyes blew wide, his voice slipping out too loud. A breaker. Only 3 emerged across the entire Dragon Nation last year, just 1 in Magic Metropolis. Several nearby students who'd just finished testing swiveled their heads, all gazes locking onto Mu-Ningyi. One girl murmured, "That's the kid with over 100 points?" A boy stepped 2 paces closer, then hesitated, stopping several feet away. too bashful to draw near. Huang Long realized he'd shouted, yet suppressed excitement still saturated his lowered tone. Man, AE, do you know what being a breaker means? Magic Metropolis had one last year, and they're already in the elite experimental class at Imperial Beast Tamer University. Mu Ningyi clapped him on the shoulder. Let's hold that conversation until all assessments wrap up. Huang Long clamped his mouth shut, though his overjoyed expression refused to fade. The surrounding students stared at Mu Ningyi for several more heartbeats before looking away, their eyes holding curiosity, envy, or quiet recognition of "so that's him." Mu Ningyi did not linger, walking toward the edge of the sports field. He spotted uniformed association staff gathered on the east side. One held a data tablet, speaking in hushed tones while glancing repeatedly his way. The middle-aged man with the badge stood among them, tapping a line of text on the tablet screen. Mu Ningyi withdrew his gaze. He could only wonder how others saw him now. One truth, however, was unshakable. He was a beast tamer, official, documented, certified. With an initial mental power score of 100, he'd shattered the standard threshold and become a breaker. A new path stretched out before him, starting this day. "Hey!" Huang Long called beside him. "What are you zoning out over?" Mu Ningyi snapped back to reality. "Nothing. Let's go report to Teacher Li. We have the Beast Tamer Talent Assessment this afternoon." The pair walked side by side across the field. Sunlight fell soft over their shoulders, the winter temperature perfectly mild, neither frigid nor sweltering. Muffled chatter from their classmates drifted faintly behind them, growing distant until dissolving into the wind sweeping across the sports ground. The afternoon talent assessments took place on the second floor of the laboratory building, separate from the morning's mental power testing hall. The sports field emptied out considerably during lunch break. Those who'd failed awakening headed home, while untested students waited in long queues. The remaining crowd consisted of fully awakened candidates like Mu Ningyi and Huang Long, waiting for the afternoon evaluation. The cafeteria buzzed with more energy than usual. 35 ninth grade classes mingled across long dining tables, filled with hushed discussions and sporadic bursts of loud laughter. Mu Ningyi and Huang Long claimed a window-side table, with several classmates from Class 6 seated opposite them. Some tapped their terminals to pull up awakening statistics. Others counted off how many peers in their homeroom had succeeded, and a few chattered excitedly about their mental power scores and element affinities. Heard Class 3 got a Lightning Element Awakener. Lightning's a rare affinity. They hit the jackpot. Lightning's nothing. A girl from Class 5 awakened Light Element. Every light in the testing room flickered when her resonance triggered. Whoa, Light Element. That's incredibly uncommon. Mu Ningyi focused on his meal, staying out of the conversation, yet every word filtered straight to his ears. Huang Long sat across from him, shoveling rice while straining to listen, letting out quiet gasps of disbelief every few sentences. Midway through lunch, a voice from an adjacent table cut through the noise. "What about Class 6? How many awakened this year?" "6 total. Huang Long's earth, Zhao Jingyi's blood, Wang Lei's fire, Li Yuan's water, Zhou Xiaoxiao's wind, plus Mu Ningyi's ice. If we exclude innate awakeners like Mu Ningyi, that's 5. Zhao Jingyi's blood element is insane. Who even manages to awaken blood affinity?" I queued right behind her. She stumbled out deathly pale. The instructor made her sit off to the side for 10 minutes to recover. Mu Ningyi's chopsticks paused midair. He turned toward Wang Lei. Zhao Jingyi awakened blood element. Wang Lei was stocky with thick brows and large eyes, a habit of rubbing his index knuckle against his thumb as he spoke. He nodded at Mu Ningyi's question. "Yep, blood element." Her hands shook nonstop when she exited. She said all she saw during Awakening Stone Resonance was a sea of scarlet. She could barely stand. The instructor explained blood awakeners experience far more violent mental power fluctuations, triggering intense physical reactions on their first resonance. Huang Long set down his chopsticks, brows furrowed. "Blood element. Isn't that one of the hardest affinities to master?" "Absolutely," Wang Lei agreed. She was just as shocked as the rest of us. "But teachers say while blood is unwieldy to control, its potential ceiling is unmatched. If you can rein it in, your combat prowess becomes devastating later on." Mu Ningyi fell silent, recalling words his second brother Mu Ninghao had shared. Most blood spirit beasts were bloodthirsty, their energy corrosive to mental power. Novice beast tamers struggled immensely to tame them, often suffering violent backlash. After tens of thousands of years of natural selection, almost no beast tamer naturally awakened a blood ring at their first resonance. Zhao Jingyi was likely one of the handful of initial blood awakeners in decades. Huang Long clearly arrived at the same thought, muttering quietly. "With her personality, can she handle it?" Ningyi offered no reply. Huang Long had not truly expected an answer, merely thinking aloud. Wang Lei kept tallying the numbers aloud. As of current counts, 5 Awakeners from Class 6. Huang Long Earth, Mi Fire, Li Yuan Water, Zhao Jingyi Blood, Zhou Xiaoxiao Wind, plus Mu Ningyi Ice. That's roughly a 10% awakening rate, matching the school average. Li Yuan's water fits him, Huang Long commented. He's always quiet and reserved. Water suits his temperament. Mu Ningyi pictured Li Yuan in his mind, half a head taller than Huang Long, yet perpetually unnoticeable, like a faint diluted shadow in the classroom. He always sat against the wall, his notebooks crammed with meticulous notes, yet never volunteering to speak in class, napping at his desk once the bell rang. Still, his exam scores consistently landed in the top 5 of the grade. Everyone knew he was brilliant, yet no one could recall him uttering an unnecessary word. He always sat against the wall, his notebooks crammed with meticulous notes, yet never volunteering to speak in class, napping at his desk once the bell rang. Still, his exam scores consistently landed in the top 5 of the grade. Everyone knew he was brilliant, yet no one could recall him uttering an unnecessary word. Zhou Xiaoxiao's wind element is an interesting contrast, Wang Lei said. She speaks so softly you can barely hear her, and she awakened wind affinity of all things. Huang Long chuckled. Wind matches her perfectly, fast on her feet. She can flee if a fight goes south. Mu Ningyi listened to their light bickering as he finished his last bite of rice. He silently ran a calculation through his head, 15 classes across the entire 9th grade, over 600 students total. At a 10% awakening rate, roughly 60 beast tamers would emerge. The fragmented rumors swirling through the cafeteria aligned with that rough estimate. Huang Long checked the time on his terminal. Assessments start at 2, 40 minutes to go. Let's head over and wait. The second-floor laboratory corridor had been rearranged for the evaluations. A large chemistry classroom at the hall's far end had been cleared of desks and converted into a temporary testing zone. A posted notice read, Beast Tamer Talent Assessment, Entry by Homeroom Batches. Mu Ningyi and Huang Long arrived to find 7 or 8 students already waiting in the corridor, including Zhao Jingyi. She sat on a wooden bench. Her color improved from that morning, yet still faintly ashen. A water bottle rested loosely in her grip, barely sipped. Normally the class arts committee member, she carried 2 faint dimples when smiling, gesturing freely as she talked, glowing like sunlight-filtered amber. Now a thin veil of shadow draped over her features. The light within her seemed dimmed, unable to break through. Mu Ningyi paused beside her bench. Are you all right? Zhao Jingyi glanced up at him, forcing a faint tug of her lips. I'm fine. I was dazed when I left this morning, but I've recovered somewhat. She hesitated, her tone tangled with complex emotion. I never imagined it would be blood element. I thought water or wind, at worst. Mu Ningyi avoided empty platitudes like it'll be okay or blood element has its strengths. He simply nodded. You awakened successfully, at the very least. There will be a path forward for you. Zhao Jingyi stared at him without speaking, though her white-knuckled grip on the water bottle loosened slightly. He said no more, walking several paces down the corridor to stand opposite Huang Long. His friend leaned in, voice lowered. Are you close with her? Same homeroom, barely acquainted, Mu Ningyi answered. But anyone would be thrown off awakening blood element first thing in the morning. At exactly 2 o'clock, the classroom door swung open. A uniformed association staff member poked their head out. Class 6, enter one by one per the roster. Everyone else wait in the corridor. Mu Ningyi was third on the list. Wang Lei went first, emerging after 7 or 8 minutes with an unreadable expression, only stating, finished. No talent, as expected. Li Yuan entered second, staying inside nearly 10 minutes. He stepped out calm, pushing his glasses up the bridge of his nose. No talent. The scanner detected no extra energy waveforms. Then it was Mu Ningyi's turn. The testing chamber was far more spacious than he'd anticipated. A complex machine, more advanced than the morning's mental power scanner, stood centered in the room, topped with a semicircular dome and flanked by a large digital display. The instructor gestured for him to sit in the chair before the equipment and rest both palms flat on the sensor panels on either side. The talent assessment differs from mental power testing, the instructor explained. Mental power scans whether you can awaken a ring. This evaluation detects latent talents and auxiliary affinities. Simply sit still and let the machine run its scan. Mu Ningyi placed his hands on the panels. Their surface carried a faint coolness, tiny subtle vibrations traveling up his palms. The machine hummed for roughly 15 seconds before releasing a soft, sustained chime. The instructor glanced down at the screen, falling silent. The assistant operator leaned over, scanning the readout twice as if double-checking the data. Talent signature confirmed. The instructor's voice stayed quiet, yet every word hung clear in the small room. The assistant paused. Certain? No equipment calibration error. The instructor ignored the question, pulling up the machine's calibration log on the console for a quick review before lifting her head. Calibration parameters normal. A beat of silence filled the chamber. 63 students in your school successfully awakened beast tamer rings this year, the assistant murmured. You're only the second to manifest a talent signature in testing. The first was Zhou Ming from Class 3. He fell silent immediately after the statement. The instructor drew a deep breath, turning back to Mu Ningyi, her previously rigid, businesslike tone breaking into hesitant cadence. Confirmed latent talent. Talents function differently from beast tamer rings. Ring elemental affinity can be observed outright upon resonance, while talents only reveal themselves when their bearer consciously activates or utilizes them. You must already be able to sense yours, correct? Mu Ningyi remained seated, hands still resting on the sensors. He had felt his talent surface the moment of his innate awakening. Elemental dominion, alongside a second ability he could not yet fully discern. He lifted his gaze, his expression steady and unruffled. I can. The instructor studied him, seemingly waiting for further elaboration, yet he offered none. The assistant muttered under his breath. The second this year, Magic Metropolis has barely any junior high students manifesting talents these past few years, and number 2 middle school produced 2 at once. The instructor ignored the aside, typing a supplementary note into the console faster than usual. She lifted the data tablet, facing Mu Ningyi with restored formal professionalism. Per association protocol, I must confirm one matter with you. Mu Ningyi waited for her to continue. Talent information registration is voluntary. Upon filing, the Beast Tamer Association and governing bodies will allocate specialized resources aligned with your talent affinity for further education, resource distribution, and spirit beast matching. Without registration, you retain all baseline Beast Tamer privileges, but will not receive priority resource allocation tailored to your talent. She paused, adding a clarification. Registered talent data may only be accessed with your personal authorization or by high-ranking association and government officials. Under standard procedures, it will never be disclosed to third parties. Mu Ningyi nodded once. I decline registration. The guidance teacher blinked, seemingly caught off guard by how quickly the answer had come. Are you certain? Those born with innate talents are extremely rare. If you skip registration, your future further education will. I'm certain. His tone was flat, without a trace of hesitation. The guidance teacher stared at him for several seconds, her gaze falling on the silver-white badge pinned to his chest. It bore flame engravings with a tiny character, Mu, etched at its center. The moment she recognized the badge, a barely perceptible twitch tugged at her brows. She dropped the subject of persuasion. Very well. She set the data tablet back on the counter, ticked the decline registration option, and typed a note. Student elects not to register innate talent information. File only retains a record of untapped latent talent. The assistant operator beside them opened his mouth as if to speak, but upon seeing the teacher's reaction, he clamped his lips shut again. Mu Ningyi stood up. Thank you, teacher. He turned and walked toward the exit. Just as he reached the doorway, the teacher's voice called out from behind him, softer than before, stripped of its rigid official tone. If you change your mind, you may come back to the association to complete registration at any time. Mu Ningyi paused briefly. All right. He pushed the door open and stepped outside. The corridor was far brighter than the testing room. Fluorescent white tubes bleached the floor pale. Zhao Jingyi stood a short distance from the door, straightening her posture instinctively when she spotted him emerging. How did it go? I have an innate talent, Mu Ningyi replied, but I chose not to register it. Zhao Jingyi froze. You didn't register it? Registering or not makes no difference to me. Mu Ningyi stuffed his hands into his pockets. My clan can supply all the resources I need. I only need to complete the school's formalities here. Zhao Jingyi studied him. Are you saying you never intended to register your talent from the start, whether you awaken one or not? Mu Ningyi said. I'd made up my mind before coming. Complete the test, confirm my talent, skip registration. Then wasn't this whole half-day of testing a waste? Not entirely wasted. Mu Ningyi shrugged. The formalities are done, and the association's database now has a record of another beast tamer with latent talent. It's enough to satisfy both the Beast Tamer Association and the government. Zhao Jingyi stared at him for 2 seconds, her eyes drifting to the badge on his chest. She dropped the line of questioning. Fine. What are your plans next? Head home, Mu Ningyi answered. Then I'll set off to find a suitable spirit beast to form a contract with. Zhao Jingyi nodded, asking no further questions. At the far end of the corridor, another testing room door swung open, and Huang Long stepped out. He looked utterly drained, yet quickened his pace the second he laid eyes on Mu Ningyi. Hey, you finished your test? How'd it turn out? What do you think? I told you long ago I knew I had a talent the second I awakened it. I just didn't file the registration. Huang Long came to an abrupt halt. No registration? Why? You'll miss out on tons of resource support. When Zhou Ming confirmed his talent, the dean ran all the way down from his office to congratulate him. A thought suddenly struck him, and he added, though I guess you don't lack those resources anyway. I still need resources, Mu Ningyi said. The clan only covers my first 2 contracted beasts and supplies for them until they reach the general tier. Huang Long sighed heavily. Even so, your league's better off than the rest of us. Can you tell me what your talent is now? People bustled back and forth along the corridor. The door to the adjacent testing room opened once more. An unfamiliar boy walked out and was dragged away by his waiting friends. Mu Ningyi leaned against the wall, turned sideways, and lowered his head, his voice dropping to a whisper only Huang Long could hear. Elemental Dominion. Huang Long blinked, processing the weight of those 2 words. Then his eyes shot wide open. Elemental Dominion? The one ranked 4th on the talent leaderboard. Mu Ningyi said nothing, only gave a faint nod. Holy hell. The curse escaped Huang Long's throat before he forced it back into a silent breath. You. He took a deep breath, glanced left and right to make sure no one was paying attention, then grabbed Mu Ningyi's arm and tugged him 2 steps toward the stairwell. His voice even quieter than before. 4th place on the talent leaderboard. This far surpasses your clan's ancestral talent by miles. Mu Ningyi stumbled from the pole, righted himself, and brushed off his sleeve. Keep your voice down. I'm already whispering as quiet as I can. Huang Long's face contorted in disbelief. Elemental Dominion. The legendary talent that maxes out elemental affinity and doubles spiritual energy conversion efficiency. Mu Ningyi met his gaze. It's only 4th. 3 talents rank higher above it. The top 3 are all monstrously overpowered. Who knows if there are even 3 beast tamers in the world with those talents. And each of those 3 only surfaces once every few hundred years. Your talent's on that same once-in-centuries level. Huang Long clutched his chest as if checking his heartbeat. The dean rushed down just for Zhou Ming's talent. If word of yours got out, that's exactly why I kept it hidden, Mu Ningyi cut in. All right, fine, Huang Long relented. Keep it a secret for now. If you lose to me in the Beast Tamer tournament later, I'll leak your talent and let the entire Dragon Nation roast you. Mu Ningyi's mouth twitched, unable to muster a smile, yet the rigid lines of his features softened slightly. At 4:30 in the afternoon, Class 6 testing concluded entirely. Liao gathered the 6 students in the corridor, clutching a printed statistical sheet, obvious excitement lacing her tone. The school-wide data has been synced over. 63 students awakened their Beast Tamer rings, and only 3 confirmed possessing innate talents. Our class has one of them. She glanced at Mu Ningyi. 3. Wang Lei blinked in shock. Out of 63 awakeners, only 3 have talents? That's right, Liao said. The other 2 are Zhou Ming from Class 3 and Qin Shui from Class 5. Awakening is merely the entry ticket. Your innate talent determines how far you can go afterward. All 5 of you have crossed that threshold. From here on out, everything depends on your own abilities. A hush fell over the corridor. Every pair of eyes landed on Mu Ningyi. He leaned against the window, his expression unchanged, his fingers brushing absently at the cuff of his school uniform. Beneath it rested his stable ice-blue Beast Tamer ring. 3. He thought to himself. Tied with Zhou Ming and Qin Shui. Zhou Ming had already registered his talent with the association. He wondered if Qin Shui had done the same. Huang Long stood beside him, jaw tight, holding back words he itched to say. The shock of hearing Elemental Dominion at the stairwell still lingered fresh, and the news of only 3 talented students made it nearly impossible to control his expression. He alternated between fighting a grin and clamping his lips shut, looking as though he were holding his breath. Liao paused, glanced down at the sheet in her hands, then lifted her head again. Once you've successfully awakened your Beast Tamer ring, the next step is contracting a spirit beast. Since each of your rings aligns with different elemental attributes, you'll each need spirit beasts native to distinct habitats. The school has formally approved a holiday leave for all of you. Starting tomorrow, the 6 of you may take a 2-week absence to seek out and contract spirit beasts suited to your affinities. Huang Long's eyes lit up. 2 whole weeks. 2 weeks, Liao confirmed. You must return to school to register after the break and submit official records of your contracted spirit beast. If you fail to form a contract within 2 weeks, you may apply for an extension, provided you supply a valid reason. Wang Lei rubbed his hands together. Does the school not care where we go during these 2 weeks? There are no restrictions, Li Yao replied. You only need to present proof of a successful contract upon your return. The association has logged all 5 of your awakenings, so you qualify for beginner tamer benefits for your first spirit beast at all spirit beast reserves and trading hubs nationwide. She turned to Zhao Jingyi, softening her tone. Blood attribute spirit beasts are highly unique. If you struggle to find a suitable match, you may contact the association's dedicated blood attribute liaison desk. They maintain a specialized resource library and recommended candidates. Blood attribute stock at trading hubs is limited, so advance reservations will be required. Zhao Jingyi nodded, her fingers tightening slightly around her water bottle. Understood. Li Yuan pushed his glasses up his nose. Teacher, will there be any repercussions if I can't find a compatible spirit beast in 2 weeks? None whatsoever, Li Yao assured him. Contracting a spirit beast is not a race. Compatibility matters far more than speed. Some tamers spend an entire month finding their first partner and go on to achieve great things afterward. These 2 weeks are simply a full window for you to search thoroughly, not a rigid deadline. Huang Long had recovered from his shock and began mulling over his options aloud. Trading hub or the wilds. The hub's convenient, but top-quality cubs cost a fortune. Hunting in the wild's cheaper, but it all comes down to luck. Since you wield the earth element, Wang Lei cut in, the Earth Spirit Beast District is downstairs in Hall 4 at the trading hub. You can check there first before heading out into the wilderness if nothing catches your eye. Huang Long nodded. Sounds good, I'll research it tonight. Though he spoke casually, his mind lingered on what Mu Ningyi had whispered earlier, spoken so softly only he could hear. The fact that one of the nation's 3 talented awakeners was his closest friend still sent a faint tingle through his fingertips. Li Yao folded the statistical sheet closed. That's all for today's testing. Head home to pack your things. Your break starts tomorrow. Feel free to message me in the class group chat with any questions. The group dispersed. Huang Long slung an arm over Wang Lei's shoulder, discussing plans to hit the trading hub together the next morning, while Li Yuan quietly walked toward the far end of the corridor, Zhao Jingyi trailing behind him. Mu Ningyi brought up the rear. He mentally mapped out his schedule, discussed travel routes to the ice plains with his uncle tonight, departed dawn tomorrow. 2 weeks, the ice plains, contract a spirit beast. Huang Long pulled away from Wang Lei and hurried over, clapping him on the shoulder. What are you doing tomorrow? Mu Ningyi glanced at him. Heading to the ice plains. Huang Long stared in surprise. The ice plains? That's soon. Uncle said he'd take me right after the awakening ceremony. The school's 2-week leave lines up perfectly. You've got your schedule packed tight, Huang Long grinned. The ice plains are freezing cold. Pack plenty of warm layers. I heard even the spiritual energy there is sharp with ice crystals. Ordinary people can't stand the chill for long. Still, your ice ring will let you adapt naturally to the environment. Mu Ningyi nodded. Huang Long went on. All right, go find your spirit beast out there. I'll scope out Earth Cubs at the trading hub tomorrow to get a sense of what's available. Fill me in on what the ice plains are like when you get back. I've never left Magic City before. Will do. He took 2 steps toward the stairwell, then glanced back. Cell service might be spotless out on the ice plains. Shoot me a message once you arrive to let me know you're safe. Mu Ningyi met his gaze. Got it. Huang Long waved and bolted down the stairs. Silence settled over the corridor. The sunset slanted through the west windows, streaking the tile floors with long, warm orange light. Mu Ningyi stood motionless, staring down at his hands. His ice-blue beast tamer ring flickered into view for a split second before fading away. 2 weeks. The ice plains. Contract a spirit beast. He pulled out his terminal and sent a message to his uncle. Testing finished. I declined talent registration, and no secondary talent was detected. The school approved 2 weeks of leave. Shall we depart for the ice plains tomorrow morning? A reply came almost instantly. Yes. I've had staff prepare all supplies. We'll discuss details when you return this evening. Mu Ningyi slipped the terminal back into his pocket and headed downstairs. Huang Long's voice echoed up from the ground floor through the floorboards, shouting after Wang Lei to hurry up. He stepped out of the school gates as twilight crept over the rooftops. The wind carried a crisp chill, though nothing compared to the ice plains. He had never set foot there, but his uncle had told him even breathing the air would frost your breath. He quickened his pace toward home. Twilight spilled through the floor-to-ceiling living room windows as Mu Ningyi pushed open his front door. The entryway lamp glowed warm yellow, wrapping him in the rich aroma of home-cooked food. His uncle sat at the head of the dining table, a holographic briefing spread open before him. His aunt and Qing bustled in the kitchen ladling soup, poking her head out at the sound of the door. Xiao Yi's home? Go wash your hands for dinner. Mu Ninghao was already seated in his usual spot, empty bowls lined neatly before him, unusually free of his phone. He looked up and sized Mu Ningyi up and down. How'd it go? Heard only 3 students in your whole school awaken talents. You didn't register yours? I didn't. Mu Ninghao broke into a grin. Nice, just like my brother. Mu Ningyi sat across from him. His uncle rotated the holographic briefing 90 degrees and slid it toward him. Take a look at this first. The headline read, Dragon Nation, Year 15,000 Annual Juvenile Beast Tamer Awakening Preliminary Report. Columns listed dozens of statistics. Provincial awakening counts, average spiritual power, rare attribute ratios, talent awakening rates, and more. The national total of 9th grade awakeners this year is over 53,000. Correct, Mu Bo said, lifting his teacup for a sip. Nearly 1,000 more than last year. The overall awakening rate climbed from 9.8 to 10.2, rising slowly but steadily. The talent awakening rate remains under 1, as always. Across the entire nation, only 551 9th grade awakeners have confirmed innate talents. Mu Ninghao cut in. How many were there last year? 530, roughly 20 more. Modest growth, but the trend is upward. Mu Ningyi's gaze drifted down to the rare attribute distribution table. 7 rare elements listed: ice, lightning, light, shadow, blood, poison, sound. Light, shadow, blood. He spotted his own name marked with a small footnote. Innate awakening, 100 spiritual power, exceptional candidate. The blood attribute student is Zhao Jingyi from my class. I know, Mu Bo replied. Your teacher Li filed a report with the association this afternoon. Initial blood attribute awakeners haven't appeared in decades. She's the first in generations. The Monster Suppression Division reached out to her the second the news broke. Mu Ningyi lifted his head. The Monster Suppression Division? Initial blood affinities are extraordinarily unique, Mu Bo said, setting his cup down. The division runs a dedicated spirit beast containment facility housing countless rare, powerful beasts, including uncontrollable blood attribute cubs. They cannot be killed, nor released back into the wild. The ideal solution is to find a blood attribute tamer to contract and raise them as loyal allies. Zhao Jingyi fits the role perfectly. Mu Ninghao set down his chopsticks. Will they take her away? They'll extend an offer, but there's no mandatory recruitment. Division agents will contact her within these 2 weeks to negotiate, and her participation is entirely voluntary. The path of a blood tamer is fraught with danger, yet if she can master it, the division is the optimal place to grow. They possess the finest blood spirit beast stock, complete specialized training regimens, and stabilized countermeasures for blood attribute backlash. Mu Ningyi fell silent. He pictured Zhao Jingyi clutching her water bottle in the corridor, the blank confusion on her face when she admitted she never expected to awaken blood. She likely had no grasp of how coveted her blood beast tamer ring was in the eyes of powerful organizations. The Monster Suppression Division stood as one of Dragon Nation's 5 major powers, alongside the Beast Tamer Association, the national government, the military, and noble clans. Its core duties were suppressing mass spirit beast rampages and detaining uniquely powerful beasts, holding the largest stockpile of rare spirit beasts in the country. Its recruitment criteria were brutally strict. Only those with special innate talents, rare elemental rings, or contracted rare spirit beasts qualified to join. Quiet hung over the living room for a moment. Qing carried the soup bowl to the table, glanced at the 3 men's somber expressions, and asked no questions, only saying, "Eat while the food's hot. It won't taste good once it cools." Mu Ningyi set down his chopsticks after finishing his meal. Uncle, when do we leave for the ice plains? Dawn tomorrow. Your elder brother has requested leave to join us. He's taken 2 school field expeditions to the ice plains before, so he's thoroughly familiar with the terrain, climate, and native spirit beasts. Mu Ningyi blinked in surprise. Elder brother's coming too? He originally planned to take you there alone, but I refused. Your brother is steady enough, yet the ice plains are brutal territory. While he can handle the journey alone as a newly advanced spirit lord, traveling with you would stretch his capabilities thin. Mu Ninghao interjected. Last time he went to the ice plains alone, he told me there's a fascinating ice-type cub there. What was it called again? Ice something beast. Ice fluff cubs, Mu Ningyi answered. Mu Ninghao stared. How do you know that? I saw them at the trading hub last time I visited. Oh right, you've seen one. Mu Ninghao scratched the back of his head. Big Brother said wild ones out in the wilderness are far more interesting than the ones at the trading hub. The gaze of wild cubs is nothing like those locked in cages. He said once you head to the ice wastes, he'll definitely take you to find some. Mu Ningyi did not reply, yet the curve of his lips softened ever so slightly. Mu Ninghao clicked his tongue beside him. Big Brother treats A differently from everyone else. When I awakened my Earth Element Beast seal, he only called to say raise it well, and hung up straight away. Your Earth Thunder Hound was bought from the Thunder Nation with gold, with eyes on you the whole journey. What trouble could it possibly run into? Mu Bo shot him a glance. Mu Ninghao shrank his neck and fell silent. After dinner, Mu Ningyi did not rush upstairs. He sat on the sofa, watching his uncle put away the hollow brief. Once Mu Bo had stored the document, he glanced up at him. Anything else you want to ask? Mu Ningyi thought for a moment. Can someone get into the Monster Suppression Bureau? Mu Bo's movements halted. He set down the brief and fixed Mu Ningyi with a serious stare. Are you asking about Zhao Jingyi or about yourself? Both. Mu Bo leaned back into his armchair and paused to gather his words before speaking. The Monster Suppression Bureau's selection standards are brutally strict. A rare element B seal is the first threshold alone, and that single requirement weeds out the vast majority of applicants. Even with a rare element seal, entry is never guaranteed. He paused briefly. A rare element only grants you the eligibility to apply, not a guaranteed spot. To the Bureau, most so-called rare elements are commonplace. Take your ice element, or thunder, for example. Only light or dark elements stand a chance of catching their eye for newly awakened rookie beast tamers like you. Mu Ningyi listened quietly. But this hardly matters for you, Mu Bo said. You are not Zhao Jingyi, and Zhao Jingyi is not you. Her circumstances are one of a kind. It has been ages since anyone awakened a blood element primary beast seal. The Bureau has critical demand for tamers to contain and suppress blood-type spirit beasts. They've set their sights on her purely because her innate element fills their needs. Mu Ningyi nodded. So even with an ice seal and exceptional psychic power, getting into the Bureau won't be easy? It won't. Rare elements and strong psychic power are merely entry hurdles. The Bureau has no shortage of prodigies. They seek an even rarer caliber of genius. He looked at Mu Ningyi. You saw it today. Out of 63 awakened students in the whole school, only 3 have confirmed top-tier talents. Across the entire nation, over 53,000 people have awakened beast seals, yet barely more than 500 possess verified elite talents. The Bureau recruits far fewer each year, with competition far fiercer than at Beast Tamer High School. Without your unique talent exposed to official records, entry to the Bureau is nearly impossible, even with your high base psychic power and rare element seal. To them, you're just another ordinary genius. Mu Ningyi fell silent for several seconds. So they reached out to Zhao Jingyi because her primary blood element seal is exceptionally rare, and the Bureau needs someone bonded to blood-type spirit beasts, he said at last. Precisely. Her raw talent pales in comparison to her blood element seal. The Bureau wants her element above all else. Your situation is the exact opposite. You hold rare talent and an ice seal, yet no official registry bears record of your extraordinary gifts. To outsiders, you're merely a standout ice-type beast tamer with an over-limit psychic aptitude. No one will seek you out proactively. Mu Ningyi stared down at his palms. A pale ice-blue beast seal flickered silently across his skin for a heartbeat before vanishing without a trace. Is entry completely impossible for an average person then? Mu Bo shook his head. No. Sufficient strength can also earn you admission. General tier spirit beast tamers mark a dividing line. Any ordinary tamer who reaches general tier may apply to become an unranked auxiliary agent. Auxiliary agent. Mu Bo smiled faintly. As one of the 5 major power factions, the Monster Suppression Bureau cannot rely solely on its limited permanent official roster to function. Every city hosts a Bureau outpost, with nearly 1,000 station staff alone, plus countless agents deployed on field missions. Auxiliary agents keep the whole operation running. Yet auxiliary agents must render extraordinary service and advance to sovereign tier to transfer into full monster warden positions, and even then, they remain barred from access to core classified affairs. Those like Zhao Jingyi, recruited fresh after awakening, live a completely different reality. She'll hold full monster warden rank from day one, groomed as a core backbone of the Bureau. Mu Ningyi nodded in understanding. I see. He stood afterward. I'm going upstairs to pack my things. Mu Bo nodded. Sleep early. We depart at 6 tomorrow morning. Mu Ningyi climbed the stairs to his room. Pushing open the door, he sat on the edge of the bed and pulled out his comlink to send Mu Ningyuan a message. Big brother, Uncle said you requested leave. Will you wait for us in the Imperial capital tomorrow? A reply arrived almost instantly. MHM, I've booked all the tickets. Transfer trains await you once you arrive. I pre-booked lodgings out by the ice wastes. Just show up. By the way, I heard you took a liking to an ice fluff beast at the trading hub? I encountered wild specimens during my last trip to the ice wastes. They feel nothing like the caged ones. I'll take you to see them once you get here. Mu Ningyi stared at the text for a long moment, then sent back a single word. All right. He turned off the lights and lay down. In the darkness, warm yellow light from street lamps outside seeped through the curtains, casting soft blurs across the fabric. Distant, faint cries of spirit beasts drifted through the air, quieter than during daylight, as if the whole city breathed at a slower rhythm after dusk. He rolled onto his side, burying his face in the pillow. His fingers curled loosely in the dark. A faint wisp of icy coolness seeped between his knuckles before fading away. Tomorrow, they would journey to the ice wastes. The alarm roused Mu Ningyi before dawn fully broke. Dim blue pre-dawn light slipped through the slits in the curtains, carrying the quiet stillness unique to the early hours. He sat upright in one fluid motion. His backpack, packed the night prior, rested motionless on the chair, waiting for him through the whole night. When he washed up and headed downstairs, every lamp in the living room blazed bright. His uncle wore a dark gray windbreaker, with a black hiking pack twice the size of Mu Ningyi's standing at his feet, its zipper strung with dozens of utility carabiners, gear unmistakably meant for frequent wilderness expeditions. Aunt and Qing stood in the kitchen doorway, holding a mug of warm spirit honey nectar. She held it out to him the moment he stepped into view. Drink this before you go, it'll keep you warm on the road. Mu Ningyi took the mug. Warm liquid slid down his throat, a wave of gentle heat unfurling from his stomach outward. He finished the drink and set the empty cup on the table. Auntie, we're leaving now. And Qing nodded, saying nothing extra. She lingered by the front door, watching Mu Ningyi bend to slip on his shoes, watching Mu Bo double-check all the pack latches, watching the two push open the door and step into the morning mist. She spoke only one line. Send a message once you arrive safely. We will. Mu Bo walked ahead at an unhurried pace. Our interregional maglev departs at 7:40. We'll reach the imperial capital around 11:30 noon. Your elder brother will meet us at the station, and we'll transfer to the ice waste perimeter after lunch. Mu Ningyi walked beside him. How much leave did Big Brother take? A full week, Mu Bo replied. He said he'll extend it with the university if needed. Field practice expeditions at Imperial Beast Tamer University count toward official course credits. He can submit a written report after this ice waste trip to fulfill his required class hours. Mu Ningyi asked no further questions. Most shops lining the streets remained shuttered, save for one spirit beast breakfast stall glowing with light. A snow-white cub crouched by its entrance, head lowered as it ate an unidentifiable creamy paste. Mu Ningyi's gaze flicked over the cub's round, fluffy tail, reminding him of the ice fluff beast he'd seen at the trading hub. Uncle. Big Brother said he saw wild ice fluff beasts in the ice wastes. Do you think that spirit beast makes a suitable first contracted partner? Mu Bo considered the question carefully. Ice fluff beasts are small, mid to low tier creatures on the ice wastes food chain, with unremarkable attack and defense stats. Most adults cap out at mid tier, with rare mutated individuals breaking through to high tier or even lord tier. By every measurable metric, they are far from the optimal choice. Mu Ningyi stayed silent, waiting for him to continue. Do you know, when your elder brother chose his second Bee Seal partner, he never consulted the family. He took off alone for the dark abyss forest in the southern border, Mu Bo said in a calm, level tone. His secondary seal awakened to the dark element, and the family compiled a list of 7 or 8 spirit beasts ideal for dark-type tamers, each entry annotated with capture difficulty, rearing costs, and growth progression curves. Mu Ningyi listened quietly. He rejected every single option on that list, Mu Bo went on. He took 2 weeks leave from school and traveled solo to the Dark Abyss Forest. When he returned, he bore a contract with a Night Shadow Panther, a spirit beast not even featured on our recommended roster. Night Shadow Panther cubs are notoriously hard to catch, and fully grown specimens carry overwhelming wild ferocity that most tamers cannot subdue. We omitted it from the list because the bonding success rate was deemed far too low. He glanced at Mu Ningyi. Yet your brother spent half a month tracking that cub, following it for 3 full days, waiting for it to draw near of its own accord. When he came home, he told me one thing. The spirit beasts on that list were what everyone else thought suited him. The Night Shadow Panther was what he knew belonged with him. Mu Ningyi filed those words away in his mind. What tier is the Night Shadow Panther now? General tier. A faint, quiet pride softened Mu Bo's voice. Your elder brother only broke through to Spirit Lord tier last month. and the Panther crossed the threshold from high to general tier alongside him. Dark-type spirit beasts generally have far longer growth cycles than other elements, yet he raised it at a pace that would take others 3 to 4 years. So sometimes, the spirit beast you pick matters more than how you raise it. When the bond's resonance fits perfectly, everything afterward flows far smoother. I told you this story about your brother to let you know you don't have to follow the family's planned path. But whatever you choose, it must be a true fit for you. Mu-Ningyi did not press for more details. He paired the name Night Shadow Panther with his elder brother's calm, quiet face, easily picturing him lingering 3 days in the dark abyss forest, waiting patiently for a panther cub to approach. No rushing, no forcing contact, only quiet waiting. The interregional maglev station was far larger than Mu-Ningyi had imagined. As one of the greatest coastal metropolises in Dragon Nation, Demon Metropolis's cross-district transit hub sat, suspended atop massive support pillars between the central and lower districts, with a long queue snaking through security at the main entrance. As Mu-Ningyi followed his uncle through the priority lane, the security scanner caught sight of the Mu clan crest pinned to his chest and waved them through without extra inquiry. The air on the platform ran cooler than street level. The maglev train shone pure silver, its hull etched with faint glowing spirit runes that shimmered softly in the early sunlight. Mu-Ningyi claimed a window seat, where he could watch the sparse crowd on the platform and the pale, brightening sky stretching far in the distance. The train pulled away with seamless smoothness, barely a hint of vibration. Demon Metropolis's cityscape slid backward outside the window, ramshackle lower district tenements, towering central district commercial skyscrapers, suspended high-rise complexes of the upper district, rolling past like an unspooled scroll painting. Mu-Ningyi stared out the glass for a long time before turning his gaze inward. The maglev cruised steadily along its rails. Urban sprawl faded into suburban outskirts, then vast stretches of spirit plant farmland and wild protected reserves. Every so often, faint specks of spirit beasts darted across distant plains, miles too far to make out any clear shape. Mu-Ningyi leaned back against his seat and closed his eyes. The carriage stayed hushed. His uncle flipped through hollow briefs beside him, the soft rustle of digital pages breaking the silence. The low, constant hum of the speeding train wrapped around him like a steady resonance. For hours passed in the blink of an eye. When he opened his eyes again, the scenery had transformed entirely. The sky blazed a clearer blue, spirit mist all but dispersed, revealing layered mountain ranges far on the horizon. Thin layers of lingering snow dusted every peak, like leftover frost that had yet to melt. The train began to decelerate, and a feminine announcement echoed through the cabin. Next stop, Imperial Capital North Station. Mu-Ningyi sat upright, peering out the window. The platform crowd thinned slightly compared to Demon Metropolis's station, yet still bustled with travelers. He scanned the masses until his eyes locked onto a figure leaning against a support pillar. Mu-Ningyi stood there. He had grown taller since their summer meeting last year, his shoulders broader and sturdier. Clad in a thick, dark overcoat and carrying a medium-sized hiking pack, he stood with a relaxed posture, his gaze sweeping endlessly through the stream of passengers. His facial features bore a faint resemblance to Mu-Ninghao's, yet their temperaments stood worlds apart. Mu-Ninghao drew every eye wherever he went with his boisterous energy, while Mu-Ningyi blended into crowds, quiet and reserved, never drawing attention to himself. The train rolled to a full stop. Mu-Ningyi stood and slung his backpack over one shoulder. The moment he stepped off the carriage, Mu-Ningyi spotted them. He did not wave or call out, only strode forward to meet them. Drawing near, he swept Mu-Ningyi up and down with a quick glance before speaking his first line. "You've grown taller." Mu-Ningyi met his eyes. "So have you." A faint smile tugged at the corner of Mu-Ningyi's mouth. Then he turned toward Mu-Bo father. "Was the trip smooth?" "Smooth enough," Mu-Bo replied. "Did you secure the transfer tickets?" "I have them booked. The next train departs at 3:30 p.m., arriving at the Ice Wastes perimeter station around 7 tonight. I rented a local homestay out there. We'll rest overnight and head deep into the ice wastes at dawn tomorrow." Mu-Ningyi took the heavy bag from Mu-Bo's grasp, hefting its weight without further question. "Come, let's grab lunch first. There's a decent noodle shop on the station's second floor." Mu-Ningyi followed behind them through the station's exit corridor. Bright midday sunlight flooded down through ceiling skylights, spilling pools of vivid gold across the tiled floors. Hollow advertisement screens lined both walls, looping promotional footage for Imperial Beast Tamer University. Students summoning spirit beasts on training grounds, spirit beasts clashing in simulated combat arenas, professors demonstrating beast seal resonance techniques from lecture podiums. Mu-Ningyi followed his line of sight. Interested in Imperial Beast Tamer University? Mooningy pulled his gaze away. Just glancing. You can apply once you form your first Spirit Beast contract, Mooning Yuan said. Admissions hinge on two metrics alone: psychic power rating and your contracted Spirit Beast growth potential evaluation. Your psychic power exceeds 100 points, an exceptionally high baseline that already qualifies you as a mid-tier beast tamer. If you advance to high tier within your 3 years of high school, admission is all but guaranteed. Mubo walked ahead without turning his head. That's far too far in the future to consider. Our top priority right now is finding your first contracted Spirit Beast. Moon Yuan fell silent, slowing his stride slightly to let Moon Ningyi walk evenly beside him. The three stepped outside the station into the Imperial capital's midday sun. The wind here carried a sharper, drier chill than demon metropolises, stinging faintly against exposed skin, yet the sky shone an unbroken, washed-out blue. Far in the distance, the suspended campus of Imperial Beast Tamer University loomed into view, massive floating edifices half hidden amid cloud banks, the school crest glowing bright atop the tallest spire, visible even from miles away. Mooning Yuan lifted a hand to point toward it. That's Imperial Beast Tamer University. I'll show you around the campus if we get the chance later. Mooningy glanced where his finger pointed, then looked back down. All right. Mooning Yuan smiled, a soft, understated warmth matching his usual quiet tone. At 3:30 p.m. sharp, they boarded their second train. This carriage was far smaller than the interregional maglev, with half as many seats, and nearly every passenger appeared bound for the northern wastes. Camping gear strapped to overhead racks, spirit beasts sitting at their owners' sides. Thick insulated winter coats contrasted sharply against the lightweight travelers seen back at the Imperial Capital Station. Mooningy settled into another window seat. As the train pulled away, the Imperial Capital's cityscape slid backward, buildings growing sparser and sparser until the floating university campus shrank to a faint smudge on the horizon. It vanished entirely at last. The train rumbled steadily northward. Mooningy leaned back against the seat. The land outside the window stretched flat and vast, with wide stretches of wasteland and bare rock visible every now and then. As daylight faded, the foliage beyond the glass shifted. Deciduous broad-leaved forests gave way to taiga, then to low shrubs and frozen tundra. We're nearly there. Mooningy glanced out the window, not lingering long. The train slowed, and a tiny station came into view. A handful of low buildings, a short platform, surrounded by open frozen plains. A pale gray-white line stretched along the distant skyline, indistinguishable from cloud banks or snow-capped mountain ranges. Mooning Yuan stood up. We've arrived. Let's disembark. Mooningy slung his backpack over his shoulders and stepped off the train. The platform was short, and a gust of wind hit him far colder than he'd anticipated, a dry, biting chill carrying an overwhelming sense of emptiness. The air held no impurities, only raw, unadulterated cold. He pulled his coat tight and stared toward that pale gray horizon far away. That was the ice field. Mooning Yuan stood beside him, gazing the same direction. We head in first thing tomorrow morning. We'll check into lodging tonight and sort out all our supplies. Signal reception is spotless deep within the ice field. Send any messages you need to tonight. Mooningy nodded. The homestay was a 10-minute walk away. It was small but spotless, run by a man in his 50s with wind-chapped, ruddy skin and a thick northern frontier drawl. Mr. Moo's reservation? 3 rooms, the furthest ones on the second floor. The heating's already turned on. Mooning Yuan took the keys. Thanks. They climbed the stairs and unpacked their luggage. Mooningy pushed open his room door. It was tiny, furnished only with a single bed and a desk, yet the view out the window halted him. The window faced straight toward the ice field. In the twilight, that pale gray-white skyline sharpened, its edges tinged with a faint lavender hue, as if traces of sky light refracted across glacial ice. He stood by the window, watching for a long time. His terminal vibrated. He glanced down to a message from Huang Long. Reached the ice field yet? I'm heading to the trade hub tomorrow. I've already picked out 2 Earth-type beast cubs. We'll send you photos once I make my final pick. Mooningy stared at the words and typed a reply. Just arrived. Entering the ice field tomorrow. Good luck choosing. Huang Long's reply pinged back instantly. Got it. Waiting for your good news. Don't freeze solid out there. Mooningy did not respond, tucking the terminal back into his pocket. Outside, twilight over the ice field deepened slowly. That pale gray-white skyline stood out even clearer beneath the darkening sky, as though the ice itself glowed faintly. He lingered by the window, silent. Tomorrow, he would step foot into the ice field officially, to claim a spirit beast of his own. He turned, walked to the bed, and lay down. The heating kept the room perfectly warm, and the bedding carried a clean, sun-dried scent. He closed his eyes, listening to the northern frontier night wind, deeper, more hollow than the winds of Magic City. Sleep drifted over him light as snow settling on ice. Before his consciousness faded, he recalled his great-uncle's words. The spirit beasts listed on the roster are what others deem suitable for you, but the one that feels right to your heart is the one you ought to choose. Next morning, dawn broke later in the northern frontier than in Magic City. Pale white light seeped through the curtain cracks, lacking the warm, soft gold of southern sunrise. He rolled over. His terminal read 6:23. All was quiet outside. The wind had died down from the night before, broken only by short, clear cries of distant birds, a unique morning signal of the ice field. When he washed up and headed downstairs, his great-uncle and elder brother were already waiting in the lobby. Mubo sat in a chair, a paper map spread before him, its edges curled with age, marked with red ink lines. Mu Ningyan stood by the window, holding a steaming mug of an unidentifiable brew. He said nothing when Mu Ningyi descended, merely tilted his chin toward the table. 3 breakfast sets sat on the surface, flat baked bread paired with salty milk tea. The flavors were richer than those in Magic City, and the warm steam was irresistibly inviting in the frigid air. Mu Ningyi sat and took a bite. The wheat had a hearty, toasted crispness. Mubo rotated the map and pushed it toward him. Eat later. Look this over first. Mu Ningyi set down his bread and leaned forward. The map detailed the terrain on the ice field's outer perimeter, contour lines, water systems, zones of spirit beast activity, and several circled locations marked in red. Brief notes accompanied each marking. Crystal butterfly breeding ground, permanent snow wolf pack territory, low-risk observation outpost, former parental research station. The last line caught his eye. Former parental research station was scrawled along the map's right edge, with a dashed path leading to it. The trail was not long, yet it cut through an area labeled High Spirit Beast Activity Zone. Mubo followed his gaze to the marking. The station's been abandoned for over 30 years. Its main structure still stands, but nothing remains inside. All your parents' journals and samples were transferred back to Magic City long ago. It's nothing but an empty shell now. Mu Ningyi did not look away. Can I see it? It's possible, but only if our schedule permits. That territory's been claimed by the Snow Wolf Pack. Venturing near recklessly is dangerous. We'll follow our planned route first. If you adapt well to the ice field, we can detour past it on the return trip for a quick look. Mu Ningyi nodded and returned to studying the map. He spotted several blue ink lines, handwriting nearly identical to the script in his parents' journals. The paths traced along contour lines, steering clear of steep slopes and deep ravines, routes they had scouted in advance. These blue lines are the paths your parents traveled. They spent 2 years in this region, mapping out the habitats and migration routes of nearly all ice-type spirit beasts from these trails. If any species catches your interest, you can follow their old paths to seek them out. Mu Ningyan finished his hot drink by the window, crossed over, and sat opposite Mu Ningyi. Don't lock onto a target too soon. Before we enter the ice field, settle on a rough preference at minimum. He met Mu Ningyi's eyes. Is there any breed you're particularly eager to find? Not what you think you ought to raise, something your heart truly longs for. Mu Ningyi fell silent for a few seconds. He thought of the ice fluff beast curled in the corner of its enclosure atop the trade hub. Pale blue fur, an absurdly fluffy tail, half-lidded eyes that had watched him for ages. The ice fluff beast, he said. Mu Ningyan showed no surprise. He glanced at Mubo, who set down the map, and the two exchanged a brief, wordless look. Then Mubo spoke, his tone far more solemn than before, carrying a rare gravity. Do you know the racial ceiling of our clan's Blazing Plumebird? Mu Ningyi answered, Sovereign Tier. Your eldest brother, second brother, and I, our first contracted spirit beasts were all Sovereign Tier Blazing Plumebirds. Mubo fixed his gaze on him. For nearly 10,000 years of the Mu clan's heritage, every clansman who awakens the Fire Lord talent has bound a Blazing Plumebird as their first beast. Sovereign Tier potential, fire attribute, perfectly aligned with our clan legacy. Even collateral clansmen without the talent are granted spirit beasts with at minimum king tier potential upon awakening their beast-binding circlet. He paused. You are one of only 3 direct blood heirs of this generation. Your elder and second brothers both chose Blazing Plumebirds. Your ice circlet bars you from that choice, yet that does not mean you may lower your standards arbitrarily. Your status carries weight, as one of the 3 pillars sustaining the Mu clan this generation. The spirit beast you contract is not merely your personal choice. It represents the clan's standing. Mubo's voice did not rise, yet every word struck like nails hammered into wood. If you bind an ice fluff beast, others will not say Mu Ningyi chose what he loves. They will sneer. A direct heir of the Mu clan stoops to contracting an ice fluff beast. You may think it unfair, yet it is reality. You bear the Mu surname, and you have reaped the clan's resources. You must bear its responsibilities in turn. Mu Ningyi kept his head lowered, not interrupting. Mubo softened his tone after a moment. I do not say ice fluff beasts lack worth. Every spirit beast holds its own value. But you must think clearly. This beast will walk beside you for decades. The higher you climb, its racial ceiling will become your hard limit. An ice fluff beast can never advance past general tier. Mu Ningyuan listened quietly, then added, I do not claim ice fluff beasts cannot be raised. Some forged deep bonds with them. But you need to weigh this. Everything you possess merits a far superior spirit beast. Mu Ningyi remained silent for a long while. He stared at the blue lines on the map, one leading to a zone marked Frozen Lake, ice fluff beast habitat. The blue path curved southeast of the lake, passing through a stretch labeled high cub density zone. Did my parents walk this trail? They did, Mubo replied. They conducted nearly 3 months of observational records there. All notes on ice fluff beast breeding behavior, territorial ranges, and cub fledging times fill that journal. Mu Ningyi lapsed into silence once more, then lifted his gaze. First to his great-uncle, then his elder brother. His voice was flat, yet layered with unspoken resolve. I know its ceiling is low. I am not set on picking it. But I wish to see wild ice fluff beasts for myself. Only after witnessing them firsthand will I know if I can let the idea go. He paused. If I see them and realize they truly are unsuitable, I will not insist. Mubo studied him for several seconds, then nodded. We will go see them first. We decide afterward. Mu Ningyuan said nothing, yet the corner of his mouth twitched faintly, a subtle, nearly imperceptible sign of acknowledgement unique to him. Mu Ningyuan folded the map and set it back on the table. Then we follow this trail. Mubo stood. Very well. Gear is stacked by the door. Both of you check your packs. We depart in 10 minutes. Icefield weather shifts without warning. The forecast calls for clear skies today, yet northern frontier winds never keep their word. Mu Ningyuan had already headed for the doorway. Mu Ningyi rose and followed. As he passed the front desk, the homestay owner looked up. Heading south or north? South, Mu Ningyuan said. Toward Frozen Lake. The man grunted. That stretch has been restless these past 2 days. Watch out for the Snow Wolf pack. They've been hunting the southern territories lately. Understood, thank you. Mu Ningyi slung his backpack on and zipped his coat fully closed. The homestay door swung open, and frigid northern frontier wind rushed in, carrying a hollow chill he had never experienced in Magic City, dry, piercing, as though air frozen for millennia swirled to slap his skin. He stepped over the threshold, standing upon this foreign land. Stretching endlessly ahead lay pale white plains dusted with thin frost, fading further out into unbroken ice fields that glinted icy silver beneath the morning sun. The sky was a vivid, stark blue, an upturned mirror reflecting the white earth below. The horizon cut sharp and clean, as if sliced with a blade. Mu Ningyuan walked several paces ahead, not turning back, yet his voice carried over the wind. Your first spirit beast is worth waiting for. But for you, the one worth waiting for will never be an ice fluff beast. Mu Ningyi offered no reply. He trailed behind, his boots crunching thinly across frozen earth. His breath condensed into white mist in the cold air, dissipating only to reform again with every exhale. His mind lingered on his great-uncle's words. One of 3 direct Mu heirs, the clan's reputation, how his beast ceiling would cap his own growth. He knew an ice fluff beast should not be his choice, yet he still ached to see them. Frozen Lake lay southeast, roughly half a day's hike away. He pulled his gaze forward and quickened his pace. The frozen ground stretched hard and brittle beneath his feet, each step crunching as his boot soles crushed the thin outer frost crust. After 40 minutes of walking, the plain's scenery transformed. Flat ground rolled into gentle undulations. Low hills emerging along the distant skyline, coated in pale frost that shimmered cold silver in sunlight. The wind never ceased, gusting sideways to flutter the hem of his coat and leach warmth from any exposed skin. Mu Ningyi zipped his collar all the way up, rubbing his wind-numed nose with the back of his hand. How long have we traveled? He asked. Nearly an hour, Mu Ningyuan replied from the front. At this pace, we'll reach the outer edge of Frozen Lake around midday. Mubo trailed behind them, neither rushing nor speaking. His eyes constantly scanned the surrounding terrain, pausing for seconds at a time to stare into the distance. confirming unseen hazards. After an hour and a half of walking, he halted atop a gentle slope, raising a hand to signal the others to stop. "What's wrong?" Mu Ningyuan turned to face him. Mu Bo said nothing, squinting toward a low hollow in the southeast. He looked back to Mu Ningyuan. "That hollow ahead bears snow wolf tracks, 3 to 4 kilometers out." Mu Ningyuan followed his line of sight, then nodded. "Detour or cut straight through?" "Detour," Mu Bo decided. "We are not here to pick fights. We'll take the gentle western slope, skirting the hill ridges, adding half an hour to our route, but far safer." Mu Ningyuan adjusted their path without argument. Mu Ningyi followed, glancing instinctively toward the hollow as they passed its edge. Beneath tangled dead brush, faint shallow depressions marked where large beasts had lain. The frozen earth around the indentations was darker than the surrounding ground. Frost melted by body heat had refrozen into a thin, smooth hard shell, stretching in continuous curved streaks across the ground, the imprint of wolves' warmth pressed into the land. He looked away, lingering no longer. 20 more minutes of walking brought steeper terrain undulations. The ice field's outer zone transitioned into more complex landscapes. Low, solid ice-covered rock mounds rose in the distance, like a row of beasts crouched flat against the ground. The frozen earth shifted from pale gray to dull yellowish brown, with brittle, withered grass stalks poking through cracks, thin and sharp as needles driven into the soil. Mu Ningyuan stopped at a fork in the trail and glanced back at Mu Ningyi. This stretch ahead is wide open with unobstructed sidelines, yet it's a favored ambush zone for icefield predators. I'll summon my Shadow Night Panther. Before Mu Ningyi could respond, Mu Ningyuan lifted his right hand. A band of matte dark gray runes materialized above his wrist, dull luster, lacking the blazing brightness of fire-type beast-binding circlets, more like a shadow touched by faint moonlight, present, yet unnoticeable. The runes vibrated faintly, and a black shadow emerged soundlessly from the shade beside him. It was a spirit beast nearly 2.5 meters long, covered head to toe in matte short black fur, marked only by a small silver-gray patch across its throat. Its frame boasted sleek, compact musculature, elongated limbs, and thick padded paws that touched the ground without a sound. Its eyes were burnished gold, pupils narrowed to thin vertical slits in daylight, yet they swept the terrain with unspoken oppressive weight. Its tail hung low, the tip twitching minutely, almost imperceptibly, as it tracked air currents and scents across the landscape in its own silent way. The Shadow Night Panther held a racial ceiling of King Tier. Upon reaching peak King Tier, it could evolve into the Abyss Shadow Panther, whose racial ceiling rose to Emperor Tier. Mu Ningyi had seen his elder brother's contracted beast before, only in photos and footage, where it appeared like an ordinary Black Panther spirit beast. Standing less than 5 meters from it now, however, he could clearly sense the unique aura of a dark attribute creature, a concentrated, latent warmth, as if it could melt into any shadow and vanish at will. Wind swirled around its frame without ruffled fur, as though the air diverted around a massive solid stone. The Dark Night Shadow Leopard turned its head to glance at Mu Ningyi, letting out an extremely low rumble deep in its throat. A dull sound squeezed out from the very bottom of its chest. Mu Ningyuan said nothing, merely tilted his chin toward the empty stretch of ground ahead. The Dark Night Shadow Leopard fell silent. It padded forward roughly 10 meters ahead of the group and halted, its tail lifting slightly from its drooping posture. It did not look back, yet its stance spoke volumes. It would scout the path ahead. Mu Ningyuan glanced at his younger brother. Its senses are far sharper than ours. If anything lies ahead, it will react first. The party resumed their march, moving a little faster than before. The Dark Night Shadow Leopard traveled in a distinctive way, its footsteps light and silent, each paw landing on spots across the permafrost least likely to make noise. Its ears, however, twisted nonstop, constantly shifting angles to catch every sound from all directions. Every so often it would pause, tilt its head toward some distant point, stand motionless for several seconds, then press onward, as if confirming the area held no threats. Mu Ningyi watched the spirit beast gliding soundlessly across the wilderness. Its ears swiveled again, turning toward a cluster of low hills far to the left. It froze for 2 heartbeats, then its ears relaxed back to their neutral position. The curve of its tail never changed, proof it had deemed that direction safe. It continued forward. Eldest brother, Shadow's nearly reached high general tier, hasn't it? I raised it from a cub. When we first formed our contract, it was shorter than your forearm. Now it's almost high general tier. A faint, quiet emotion lingered in Mu Ningyuan's tone, not pride, but the calm certainty of years of steady investment. It's matured faster than I anticipated. I've given it every resource I can muster, and it repays me with every ounce of its strength. Mooningy walked quietly for a while before speaking again. You camped out in the dark abyss forest for 3 days waiting for it to draw near. How did you know it would come? Mooning Yuan's footsteps faltered for a split second, barely perceptible, before resuming their steady rhythm. I didn't know. I simply resolved to wait. If it hadn't appeared by the 3rd day, I would have stayed for a 4th. And if it never came at all, then I would seek another. Mooning Yuan's voice remained flat and unwavering. You cannot tell what is worth waiting for, and what is not, until you try. Mooningy fell silent, tucking those words away alongside the lessons his great-uncle had shared before. What merits a better match? What is worth enduring for? The truth that trial alone reveals value. The terrain ahead began to shift. A patch of light glinted far off, its pale icy blue hue stark against the gray-white permafrost landscape, impossible to miss. The blue expanse seemed to slowly expand, though it was not the land spreading. They were merely drawing closer. The icy blue grew larger in their field of vision, its blurry edges sharpening until it resolved into a wide, hollow basin blanketed entirely in ice. A frozen lake. Mooning Yuan slowed his pace. Shadow stopped at the head of the group, ears pricked forward and held rigid for a moment, then twisted its head to meet Mooning Yuan's gaze. The message in its golden eyes was clear. No predators lurked ahead, no traces of large spirit beasts lingered here. Mooning Yuan stepped to the lake's edge and peered down. Most of the surface was sealed under thick ice, save for several patches near the southern shore where thin ice had shattered and refrozen, revealing deep navy water beneath. Low frost shrubs ringed the banks, their branches sheathed in delicate frost crystals that shimmered like crushed diamonds as they swayed in the wind. This is the frozen lake, Mu Bo said, striding to the shore. He knelt and pressed a palm to the ice, testing its thickness. The ice will bear our weight, but steer clear of any fissures. Mooningy stood on the bank, his gaze sweeping across the water. The lake was small, roughly 300 to 400 meters across, its irregular basin carved out by ancient glacial pressure. A gentle shrub-covered slope rose along the southern shore, pockmarked with shallow hollows, the dens of small burrowing creatures. Then he spotted it. At the edge of one hollow, right where the brush met the ice, a tiny ball of pale blue fluff curled up, scraping at something with its front paws. It was minuscule, even smaller than the specimen he'd seen at the trading hub. Its soft fur rippled in the breeze, like a wisp of living cotton. An ice fluff beast. Wild. Alive. Less than 50 meters away. His breath caught in his throat. The ice fluff beast abruptly halted its scratching and lifted its head, staring straight at Mooningy. Its round, tiny eyes glistened damp dark brown in the afternoon sunlight. It spotted him, yet did not flee or hide. It merely tilted its head, as if trying to distinguish this distant human from the wind, snow, and frozen earth. Mooningy stood motionless on the lakeshore, separated from the wild ice fluff beast by a sheet of ice. They locked eyes for 3 silent heartbeats amid the frozen stillness. Then the little beast lowered its head and returned to scraping at the ground before it. Mooning Yuan stood beside him, saying nothing. Wind swept across the lake, carrying the open, crisp chill unique to the ice plains, tangling the hem of Mooningy's coat. He stayed rooted to the spot, watching for a long time. The ice fluff beast never lifted its head a second time. It focused entirely on a dry root protruding from the frost, alternating its front paws to dig and occasionally nudging the dirt with its damp nose, searching for something buried beneath the permafrost. The lake wind flattened its pale blue fur to one side, which slowly fluffed back against its small frame once the gust passed. It was so tiny Mooningy estimated he could reach it in fewer than 30 quick strides, but he did not move. He found himself in no hurry to close the distance. Shadow lay quietly at his feet, its dark golden eyes half-lidded, tail loosely coiled along its flank. It appeared utterly indifferent to the ice fluff beast in the distance, only glancing over once in a while before turning its gaze away. Its apathy was genuine. The small creature registered as nothing worthy of attention within Shadow's sensory range. Mooning Yuan remained silent beside him. He followed Mooningy's line of sight to the ice fluff beast for several seconds, then looked away to inspect the thickness of the ice along the lake's southern stretch. Mu Bo knelt on the opposite bank, pressing his fingers against a half-exposed boulder to gauge its texture and weathering. The wind died for a heartbeat, as if the entire frozen lake had held its breath. A deep rumble echoed forth, a vibration born from the earth's depths, not thunder, nor howling wind, far heavier and lower than either, the aftershock of some colossal force slamming into the ground miles away. Shadow's body tensed instantly. Its half-shuttered eyes flew wide, vertical pupils blowing open as its dark golden irises contracted against the daylight. It rose from its crouch in a split second, limbs braced low to the ground, tail pressed tight against its sides, ears fixed rigidly toward the southeast. Mooning Yuan heard it too. He lifted his head to peer in the same direction, his brows drawing tight, not drastically, but the crease between them deeper than it had been all day. The rumble came again, louder and closer this time, carrying a sharp, bone-splintering crack, as if some massive body had crashed into solid stone. A third sound split the air next, a shrill, piercing screech, high-pitched like metal dragged across rock. A heavy, guttural growl rumbled beneath the shriek, hinting at far greater power still trapped deep within the beast's chest. Mu Bo rose from the lakeshore. He moved slowly, then stood rigid, staring toward the source of the noise for several long seconds. His expression shifted. Mu Ningyi had grown up under the Mu clan roof and seen countless looks on his great-uncle's face, the calm calculation of negotiations, relaxed ease at mealtimes, focused gravity while teaching. But he had never witnessed this exact demeanor. It held no fear, no nervousness, only severe, restrained judgment, every emotion locked away. Mu Bo's lips flattened into a thin line, his jaw hardening as his gaze darted rapidly back and forth across the distant skyline, scanning for a massive silhouette. A Yuan. Mu Bo spoke, his voice quiet yet an octave lower than usual. Take your brother and retreat behind the rock formations on the opposite shore. Make no noise, and do not summon your beast-binding rings. Mooning Yuan asked no questions. He stepped sideways, positioning himself between Mu Ningyi and the distant roar, his palm lifting slightly, not fully summoning his beast, yet faint dark gray runes glimmered above his skin. Move, Mu Ningyuan whispered, his speech faster than normal, yet crisp and clear. He nodded toward the rock clusters on the southern bank, signaling Mu Ningyi to follow. Mu Ningyi glanced back at the ice-fluffed beast. It had stopped digging, ears pricked straight toward the sound. It stared that way for 2 seconds before spinning and vanishing silently deep within the shrubbery. Mu Ningyi tore his eyes away and followed his elder brother. They stepped far more lightly than before, landing on the balls of their feet first before lowering their heels, avoiding loose stone and dead twigs. Shadow padded ahead of them, body hunched low to the frost, ears constantly swiveling toward the distant commotion. They reached the edge of the southern rock outcrops when the third earth-shaking roar rolled over them, closer than the prior two. It blended with a sustained, low bellow, not a shriek, but a deep, enraged rumble churned up from a giant beast's chest. Every roar sent fine spiderweb cracks spidering outward across the permafrost beneath its feet. Though its exact species was unrecognizable, any creature capable of clashing with a top-tier spirit beast like a frost giant dragon was undoubtedly at minimum Emperor tier. 2 Emperor tier spirit beasts stood locked in confrontation. The ground between them was torn up, a jagged hollow gouged into the frost, as if something buried there had been transitioned by one beast, only for the other to rush forward and contest it. Mu Ningyi made out the hollow's shape, then Mu Ningyuan tugged his arm, pulling him behind the rocks. Mu Bo still stood alone on the lakeshore, facing the distant conflict, his frame unmoving in the wind. He raised his right hand to shoulder height, and 2 sets of beast-binding ring runes bloomed above his palm, one blazing crimson, the other heavy, earthen yellow. The dual rings ignited simultaneously, and 2 masses of colored light materialized from the void behind him at his summons. The left bundle of light condensed upon landing into a giant bird clad entirely in scarlet plumage, Mu Bo's primary battle spirit beast, the Imperial tier Blazing Plume Phoenix. Mu Ningyi had seen his second uncle's smaller Blazing Radiance variant, yet this specimen was nearly twice its size. Flaming patterns etched across its crest burned unextinguished, as if fire blazed from within its flesh. Fine embers trailed from its tail feathers, and the radiating heat melted tiny streaks into the permafrost where it touched down. The earth and gold glow on the right landed with far greater weight. The ground shuddered dully on impact, as if a mountain of stone had crashed onto the frost. Once the light faded, a colossal tortoise-shell spirit beast stood revealed, its carapace layered with hexagonal mineral plates that glinted with matte metallic luster. Its limbs were thick as stone pillars, claws sunk deep into the ice, head and limbs armored in matching scaled plating, with only narrow slits for eyes that glowed dark gold. The mountain guardian tortoise, also Imperial tier, famed for impenetrable absolute defense. Mubo did not glance back at his two nephews. He stood firm, the blazing plume phoenix settling 3 meters to his left, the mountain guardian tortoise 2 meters to his right. The overlapping auras of the two imperial tier beasts split the ice plain wind into 2 separate currents that swerved around them. A yuan. Mubo's voice carried forward, still quiet yet heavy as lead. Lead Shaoyi straight north. Do not stop. Once I have resolved this, I will track your scent and catch up. Mu Ningyuan did not hesitate. He gave Mu Ningyi's arm a gentle yet firm pull. Let's go. Mu Ningyi spun around at the tug and hurried after his elder brother, moving quickly through the rock shadows toward the north. Shadow led the way ahead, its pace swifter than before, ears continuously trained backward while maintaining distance from any potential hidden threats. They traveled roughly 700 or 800 meters when a deafening crash boomed from behind them. Mu Ningyi did not look back, yet he could feel the permafrost vibrate faintly underfoot, as if the entire landmass had been struck by a colossal blow. Next came a deep, resonant exhale, not wind, but the rush of air expelled from a massive living chest, mingled with the crisp crackle of frost shattering, like frozen glass flaking apart under crushing weight. He trailed Mu Ningyuan, stepping exactly where his brother's feet had trodden, pressing steadily northward. Shadow's tail stayed plastered to its sides, flicking minutely left and right every so often, yet its tip never lifted an inch, a posture it only held when hyper-alert to danger. Wind blew toward them from the rear, scattering the white mist of Mu Ningyi's breath. Faint echoes of the dragon's screech dipped over, paired with a deep, bell-like thud, the sound of the mountain guardian tortoise's shell taking a direct hit. The noise was dull, not sharp, solid as a fist slamming against solid stone. After 10 minutes of walking, Mu Ningyuan halted behind a low frost mound. He leaned against the windward side, one hand braced against the frozen dirt, tilting his head to listen to the distant chaos for a moment before straightening and squatting to face Mu Ningyi. We wait here for now. They huddled behind the mound for more than 10 minutes. The wind returned to its normal low, empty drone, filled with the faint rattle of drifting ice crystals once more. The distant screeches had fallen silent long ago. The ground tremors grew weaker, spaced further apart, fainter with each aftershock, like a drum still thrumming after the final strike has landed. Mu Ningyuan listened intently for a long while, then pulled his hand from his knee and sat upright, abandoning his half-crouch. He remained tense, yet the rigid line of his shoulders softened slightly. Great Uncle has stabilized the situation, he murmured, half to himself, half to his brother. Mu Ningyi said nothing. He still strained to catch the faint vibrations behind them, accustomed to the steady, distant rumble. The sudden silence left him stripped of his constant sense of safety. He lowered his head, staring at the thin layer of frost coating the ground on the leeward side of the frozen mound. The frost crystals were fine, sculpted into rippled ridges by the wind, resembling miniature sand dunes. He watched for a moment before hearing Mu Ningyuan push himself to his feet. Mu Ningyuan said nothing more. He glanced back over his shoulder, then lifted his right hand, palm upturned. A ring of crimson light runes materialized above his wrist, far brighter than the summoning sigil of the dark shadow leopard. The crimson hue carried tangible warmth. The instant it appeared, Mu Ningyi could feel the air beside him grow marginally hotter, and minuscule melting streaks formed along the edges of the frost ripples on the frozen earth. The crimson runes expanded rapidly, swelling outward to condense a half-human-tall sphere of light hovering mid-air. The orb contracted inward briefly, then burst apart, revealing a spirit beast standing with folded wings within. Its entire body was clad in blazing scarlet plumage, tiny embers trailing from its tail plumes that crackled faintly in the frigid air. Though far smaller than the sovereign rank blazing plumage bird belonging to his great uncle, it commanded an undeniable presence atop the permafrost. The flame patterns adorning its crest did not snuff out in the wind, merely tilting with the gusts like a torch burning amid the breeze. Its eyes were amber, ringed with fine crimson streaks around the pupils, slowly sweeping the frozen plain all around. Even dwarfed by his great uncle's colossal beast, it radiated an imposing aura atop the ice. When its wings folded tight, the scarlet feathers at the wingtips shimmered with a faint luminous halo, as if a paper-thin sheet of flame flowed across their surface. It stood motionless, turning its head slowly, amber eyes traversing the frozen wasteland with unhurried, prudent scrutiny every time it shifted its gaze. This was Mu Ningyuan's first contracted spirit beast, the blazing plumage bird, Lord Tyr. Mu Ningyuan had named it Blazing Sunday. Once fully manifested, Blazing Sun made no sound. It stood planted, gazing southward for a heartbeat before spreading its wings a hairline apart. Mu Ningyi noted the precise angle, less than half unfurled, a stance balanced between instant flight and minimal stamina expenditure. It then folded its wings and alighted lightly on Mu Ningyuan's shoulder. Shadow, by contrast, coiled its entire frame into a compact dark silhouette on the opposite side. Less than 3 meters separated the two beasts. One shadow dark, one flame crimson. They flanked Mu Ningyuan like two barriers of contrasting hues. Mu Ningyuan squatted back down. He offered no explanation for summoning Blazing Sun now. Shadow handled scouting and stealth, while Blazing Sun bore the brunt of combat. Their roles naturally diverged when facing unknown threats. He simply positioned the Firebird so the Arctic wind diverted around its body, raising the ambient temperature slightly, and then spoke. Shadow's perception covers movement across the open terrain ahead. Blazing Sun monitors threats from the rear. If Father runs into trouble requiring backup, Blazing Sun will detect it first. Mu Ningyi nodded. He could barely register the subtle warmth emanating from the bird, yet even a few degrees of difference were stark. Against the ice plane's bitter wind, easily discernible on exposed skin, he angled his body slightly toward Blazing Sun, letting the warm aura brush his wind-chilled cheeks. Shadow paid Blazing Sun's arrival no heed. It did not even turn its head to glance at the Firebird. Holding its prone posture with ears swiveling constantly southward, such unconcern only came from long-term battle partners. No need to confirm each other's presence, only to trust the other held their post. Blazing Sun mirrored the indifference. After settling into a crouch, it never spared Shadow a single glance. Mu Ningyi watched the two beasts in silence, picking up subtle details. Beneath Blazing Sun, the frost covering the permafrost slowly melted away, exposing dark gray raw soil. Where Shadow lay, however, the frost ripples remained entirely undisturbed, their delicate wave like ridges frozen perfectly in place. Mu Ningyi locked eyes with Blazing Sun's amber orbs. The Firebird turned its head to meet his gaze, its stare neither cold nor warm, merely identifying the human before shifting its attention elsewhere. It looked away naturally, without impatience, having gathered all the information it needed. No further observation was required. He withdrew his gaze and hunkered back behind the frozen mound. Shadow and Blazing Sun stood guard on either flank. Faint tremors occasionally rumbled far behind them, yet they no longer rippled the ground. The wind continued to howl. Tiny ice crystals drifted past Blazing Sun. They melted into minuscule mist mid-air before they could drift far, only to recondense into finer ice shards that glinted briefly in the light and vanished. Mu Ningyuan did not rush him nor utter superfluous words. He squatted quietly, one hand resting on his knee, the other hanging loosely at his side. The presence of his two spirit beasts turned the leeward hollow of the mound into a far safer nook than the open north. Mu Ningyi leaned against the mound's sloped earth, exhaling a cloud of white mist. He stared at the unextinguished flame patterns etched across Blazing Sun's back for a long moment. Then he shifted his gaze to the empty plain stretching endlessly north. The south had fallen utterly silent. The wind returned to its usual Arctic temperament, endless, hollow, carrying the sharp tang of ice crystals and frozen soil. Mu Ningyuan squatted behind the mound, cupping an ear to listen for minutes on end, but heard nothing more. Still he did not rise, maintaining his half-crouch, hand braced on his knee, eyes fixed on the southern hills, as if waiting for a confirmation he knew would come. It had not yet arrived. Shadow lay at his feet, its dark golden eyes half-lidded while its ears never ceased swiveling south. Blazing Sun crouched 2 paces behind him, its posture marginally more relaxed than before, yet the flame crests atop its head burned steadily without fading. Mu Ningyi waited too. He buried his chin in his collar, watching plumes of white breath disperse and reform before his face. The wind on the leeward slope was gentler than he'd expected, yet bone-dry cold seeped through every seam of his coat. He rubbed his numbed fingertips together. The skin stiffened and frosted from the chill. The silence dragged on for 3 to 4 minutes. Then Shadow stood. It moved abruptly, surging from a prone stance to rigid upright in an instant, for limbs locked taut as a drawn bow. Its tail fell loose against its hind legs, ears snapped rigid toward the north, and its slitted pupils blew wide. It made no sound, yet its body lowered into a predatory crouch, the tip of its tail twitching faintly. Mu Ningyuan sensed the shift too. He twisted to follow Shadow's line of sight, his brows furrowing anew. He pressed a palm flat to the ground, feeling the faint vibrations for several seconds before pulling his hand away, voice lowered to a whisper. A pack of snow wolves. Mu Ningyi tracked his gaze. Far across the northern frozen plain, along the hazy horizon, a swathe of off-white shapes moved swiftly. They flowed low to the ground like pale liquid, closing the distance toward their hiding spot. Counting roughly a dozen to 20 beasts, they formed a loose, skirmish line sweeping in from the north. They're not targeting us. Mu Ningyuan's eyes stayed locked on the distant pale horde, his tone steady yet quicker than usual. They're hurting something ahead of them, and we're directly in their path. Shadow did not wait for an order. It dropped its body even lower, a deep, barely audible rumble reverberating in its throat. It was not an aggressive snarl, but an advance warning. Its tail clung tight to its legs, claws pricking out to scratch faint gouges in the permafrost. Mu Ningyuan stood. He shot Mu Ningyi a quick, steady glance. We can't stay here. The Snow Wolf pack is advancing this way. If they pass through this hollow, we'll get caught up in their hunt. He paused. I'll lead Shadow and Blazing Sun out to draw them off. Snow wolves have clear hunting targets and won't split their pursuit. Once I enter their line of sight, all their attention will fix on me. Mu Ningyi grasped the danger. You're going to lure an entire wolf pack alone. That's far too risky. Mu Ningyuan did not answer directly. He closed his eyes, and when he opened them again, a new beast tamer ring sigil bloomed above his palm. Pale cyan, wrapped in a light, wind-wreathed aura. The rune flickered briefly, tracing the silhouette of another spirit beast in the air behind him. When the light faded, a half-human tall beast landed before his feet. Its form resembled an exquisitely sculpted silver vortex, slender and elongated with no hard, defined outlines. Its limbs tapered to nearly translucent pale cyan wisps, as if condensed wind made flesh. Streaks of flowing pale cyan light rippled across its body. They drifted slowly in the dimness like trapped gales. Its eyes were two brighter orbs of light. No pupils, no irises, only steady pools of blue-white luminescence, gazing calmly at Mu Ningyi. A wind sprite, wind element spirit beast with a racial cap of sovereign tier, Mu Ningyuan's third contracted beast. This is Gale, my wind sprite, general tier, Mu Ningyuan explained. It possesses unmatched speed. It can lead you out of this stretch of land before the wolf pack's hunting line closes in. It reads terrain and air currents better than any scanner, knowing which paths are safe and which to avoid. We'll split up. I'm a spirit lord. I only mean to distract them, not engage in full combat. Besides, Blazing Sun can fly. I won't be in true peril. Gale tilted its head, its twin cyan light orbs swiveling toward Mu Ningyuan, waiting silently for orders. It hovered without the slightest wobble, like a wisp of wind frozen mid-air. Mu Ningyuan met Mu Ningyi's eyes evenly. Follow it. It will guide you to a secure hiding spot. It will wait for me there once I've dealt with the wolves. Stay put and do not wander off. Mu Ningyi understood he would only weigh his elder brother down if he tagged along, and nodded. I get it. Mu Ningyuan stood fully upright, glancing northeast as wind swept northward, fluttering the hem of his coat. He tossed a glance at Shadow. Move. Shadow vanished without a sound, leaping forward in a black arc across the permafrost to intercept the pale mass of wolves. Blazing Sun unfurled its wings, its scarlet silhouette streaking overhead to hover above Shadow. Mu Ningyuan spared Mu Ningyi no further look. He strode forward, matching the pace of Shadow and Blazing Sun, sprinting toward the wolf pack's flank. Mu Ningyi stood rooted, watching his brother's figure shrink into the distance. He then turned to Gale. Let's go. Gale did not wait for a second command. It drifted forward smoothly, gliding low over the ground like a wisp of stretched smoke. It maintained a pace Mu Ningyi could keep up with, hovering 10 meters ahead, veering left to circle fields of jagged rock. Then it dropped to skim the earth beneath low scrub. Its route was never straight, twisting to evade unseen hazards it sensed through shifting air currents. Mu Ningyi ran without pause, never glancing back. After roughly 10 minutes of running, the terrain shifted. The flat frozen plain gave way to exposed bedrock, littered with loose stones and weathered fissures. Gale halted atop a massive boulder half buried in rubble at the head of a south-facing steep slope. Mu Ningyi skidded to a stop, hands braced on his knees as he gasped for breath. The Arctic air was frigid, searing his windpipe as he inhaled cold air mid-run. After catching his breath, he straightened and followed Gale's line of sight. A narrow fissure split the slope's base, just wide enough for a person to squeeze sideways inside. The crevice's edges were coated in pale gray moss-like vegetation. It was pressed flat against the stone by freezing temperatures. The interior plunged into shadow, its depth unreadable. Gale drifted down from the boulder, hovering beside the fissure's mouth, tilted its head toward Mu Ningyi, then inclined its light orbs deeper into the crack. Its message was unambiguous. Mu Ningyi turned sideways, pressing against the stone rim as he shuffled inward step by step. The rock walls were rougher than expected. They were coated in a thin layer of ice that scraped faintly beneath his fingertips. The entrance was cramped, yet 5 or 6 paces inward, the space widened. He could fully spread his shoulders, revealing a moderately spacious cavern ahead. He straightened, magnifying a breath, and surveyed his surroundings. It was a natural cave, far larger than the narrow entrance suggested. The ceiling rose 3 to 4 meters overhead. The chamber spanned roughly 20 square meters. Uneven rock walls were dusted with pale gray mineral deposits that glowed with a faint, muted luminescence in the dim light. The air inside was noticeably warmer than outside. The wind compressed through the fissure slowed drastically once it spilled into the open cavern. Gale floated in after him, hovering just inside the entrance, suspended silently mid-air. It did not venture deeper, merely hanging there, its twin cyan light orbs flickering dimly, as if standing sentinel. Mu Ningyi slid down to sit against the stone wall, knees drawn up, hands resting atop them. The quiet within the cave differed vastly from the wind's constant white noise outside. It was a filtered, pure silence muffled by rock. He could hear his own breathing and the faint drip of water droplets echoing occasionally. He sat for a while before a strange unease prickled at his senses. He lifted his head to re-examine the cavern. Light slanted through the fissure entrance, casting a long, narrow band across the stone floor. The strip of light stretched farther than he recalled. When he first stepped inside, it fell 5 paces before him, yet now it extended 7 paces deep. It was as if the cavern's interior had somehow lengthened and broadened since his arrival. He stood and walked several paces deeper into the cave. His footsteps landed softly on the stone, no echo bouncing back. The floor was blanketed in fine sand like sediment that absorbed vibration. After a dozen steps, the passage narrowed briefly at a bend before opening wide once more. He froze. The cavern's inner chamber stretched far wider than he'd first seen. A faint glow flickered in the distant darkness. It was not sunlight, but a cold silvery radiance, as if moonlight condensed into a single orb. His gaze locked onto the source of the light. 20 meters deep within the cave, something stirred on the stone floor. Soft, slow undulations rippled across a fluffy white mass, its exact shape indistinct, yet the pale glow emanated directly from its form. Mu Ningyi stood motionless for several seconds, resolving to sweep the area with his spiritual power. He closed his eyes, channeling his consciousness to stretch toward the luminous shape. The instant his spiritual sense made contact with the white mass, the feedback jolted him rigid. It was a fledgling bird. Its body spanned no longer than an adult human forearm, covered entirely in soft white down. Only a few pale blue primary flight feathers jutted from its wingtips, not yet fully unfurled. It curled into a ball, head tucked beneath its wings, its back rising and falling gently with each breath. Its spiritual power fluctuations were incredibly faint. Young as it was, its spirit field had not fully expanded. Even so, Mu Ningyi could sense an exceptionally pure, unadulterated ice element spiritual aura emanating from it. The energy felt unlike any ice-type spirit beast he had ever encountered. Clearer, more restrained, a frigid extreme sealed deep within glacial ice. An ice illusion bird. Its racial upper limit was sovereign tier, matching the power of the Mu clan's strongest spirit beast, the blazing plumage bird. Unlike the firebirds, wild ice illusion birds were extraordinarily rare, let alone ones bound by a soul contract. Yet here, before him, rested an infant ice illusion bird. The fledgling stirred. It lifted its head out from under its wing and twisted toward Mu Ningyi. In the dim light, he caught sight of pale silver eyes. Its pupils were nearly pure silver, ringed by an extremely faint, thin band of ice blue at their center. Mu Ningyi froze where he stood, his heartbeat quickening. He did not hesitate for long and raised his right hand. His ice blue Beastmaster ring materialized from his palm. It spun silently within the shadowed cavern. He extended the ring's glow toward the fledgling. The pale ice blue light spread gently until it brushed the edge of the chick's psychic aura. At that exact moment, the fledgling suddenly raised its head. Its movement was delicate yet swift, nothing like its sluggish stirrings earlier. It spread its down-dusted wings, gave a soft beat, and lifted off the ground entirely, gliding deeper into the cavern. It flew at an unhurried pace, yet its course was unwavering, straight into a shadow-shroused fissure at the cavern's far end, vanishing from Mu Ningyi's sight in an instant. Mu Ningyi blinked in surprise, then gave chase. He sprinted across the open stretch of the inner cavern and skidded to a halt before the fissure's mouth. The crack was narrow, barely wide enough for a person to squeeze through sideways, and its depths seemed endless. Faint gusts of wind drifted out from within, along with the faint receding trace of that silvery glow. He glanced back at Gale, using the nickname Feng Yao. The spirit had caught up to him, hovering less than 2 meters behind, its two clusters of pale cyan light burning steady. It made no sound and showed no sign of blocking his path, simply hanging silently in midair as if waiting for his decision. Mu Ningyi turned back and edged sideways into the fissure. The passage grew even narrower inside than it had appeared from the entrance. The rock walls on either side were cold and damp, brushing almost flush against his body. He shuffled forward sideways for a dozen paces, when the fissure abruptly constricted to barely passable width. Just as he feared he would become stuck, the ground beneath his feet flattened out, and the space ahead burst wide open. It took him several seconds to adjust to the drastic shift as he stepped out into the new chamber. This was a massive underground vault. Its ceiling stood nearly 5 times higher than the cavern he had just left, and thin sheets of ice coated every surrounding stone wall. They glowed with a uniform faint cobalt blue under some unseen light source. A flat clearing lay at the chamber's heart. Its floor was strewn with fine white mineral gravel, worn smooth as if by endless currents of water. The entire space was more than 10 times the size of the prior cavern. He paused and glanced back at the narrow fissure behind him. It looked trivial, just another unremarkable crack embedded in the rock face. Yet he had walked fewer than 20 paces through it. There was no logical way such a short passage could lead to such an enormous chamber. Something was off about this cavern. He had sensed it the moment he noticed the shifting length of the light streaks in the first cave. The space past the entrance had felt far larger than it ought to be. That uncanny sense of being bigger than it looks had amplified tenfold once he crossed the fissure. It was as though the cavern expanded before him, as if the space itself receded and stretched with every step he took. Gale drifted behind him, its twin cyan glimmers flickering softly. It showed no trace of agitation, yet hovered slightly higher than before, as if surveying the shifting surroundings. Mu Ningyi pushed down the confusion swirling in his mind and took a few steps forward. The echo of his footsteps barely rippled through the vast chamber before being absorbed by the ice-lined walls. The underground vault was deathly quiet, quiet enough for him to hear his own heartbeat, quiet enough that he could almost detect the faint hum of his nerve endings. Then another sound cut through the hush. A clear, crisp chirp echoed from deeper within the vault. It held no tone of calling or warning, more a simple, unprompted declaration, "I am here." The fledgling crouched atop a flat stone not far away, its silvery plumage shimmering faintly beneath the cobalt luminescence. It made no attempt to fly off again, merely huddled there, tilting its head to regard him calmly with those pale silver eyes. Mu Ningyi halted roughly 20 meters away, advancing no further. He glanced down at his right palm. His ice-blue Beastmaster ring hovered silently. It was blazing brighter than it ever had before. He could feel the fledgling's psychic ripples drawing near, not through physical movement, but a slow convergence of their mental frequencies. It had flown from the fissure's depths to perch on this rock, not to flee him, but to wait for him to follow. Mu Ningyi lifted his gaze, meeting those pale silver eyes head-on, and took the next step forward. This time, there was no hesitation at all.